Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the show today. Happy to have you here for March 14th of 2022. Time is definitely flying by. Next thing you know, it'll be 2050 and the world will be a cinder, you know, or earlier. But nevertheless, happy to have you guys here. We're going to get into comic books. We got some interesting, cool things and some laughable stuff as well to get into today. We are joined by Ben today. Hopefully, a couple of the other guys will show up for our conversations. But hi, Ben. How you doing?
Hey, buddy, it's going pretty good. Can't complain. How about you?
I am doing well. It's a nice sunny day. I got a cup of hot coffee sitting with a friend. I mean, come on. How could it get any better? And I'm going to talk about
Yeah.
comics. Gee, me damn. You know, life's good, but not for everybody. But we're not going to get into all the nonsense that's going on in the world today. We're going to stick to comics and have some fun. So, with that, and since we haven't really kind of had a direct conversation with you, something we do with all the people kind of jump on the show, Ben, you have to tell us your favorite comic book character and why.
Ooh, that's a really good question. And specific caveats to this because as time changes and as you change, it's okay
Sure.
for your favorite comic book characters to change. But I've always been a big fan of the Green Lantern. It's a thing that my buddy Carlos and I have in common. We're both fan of like the lanterns in general, and largely because it always felt like it was very approachable because it was always just like based on imagination. Like the more you could imagine something, the more real it was with the power of the ring. And I just liked having a power that was, just based off of imagination. I thought that was really cool.
It was cool. Green Lanterns are fun, but if you like Guy Gardner, we can't speak anymore.
What's wrong with the guy
I
Gardner?
hate Guy Gardner.
What? Why?
I,
What's wrong with
I don't know.
you
He
and
just
Guy?
annoys the hell out of me, dude. I don't know.
That's
Uh,
like him.
no, I really don't like Guy Gardner. But I've enjoyed all the stuff they've done with it. Actually, one of the people in this community that's done a lot shows up here every now and then is Ethan Van Sciver, of course, and his Rebirth run. Not only introduced so many cool things to the Lantern Corps, but and it was an amazing run. I mean, out of all the Rebirth stuff, I think Ethan's run on Hal Jordan Green Lantern was great. But he also gave us the Red Lanterns. The whole color war came out of Ethan
Right.
and them, right? And we should get him on here and just have a conversation about that. I think because that would be neat to hear the behind the scenes, right? Because he's an artist. I mean, Ethan can be. I mean, I'm not going to mince words. He can be an annoying little shit sometimes. But you can't deny he's one of the greatest comic book illustrators of his generation. I mean, my God, dude, right? But I really should see if I can get Ethan on here and see if we couldn't have a conversation about that because that would be neat to know exactly how that all came. Because when you talk about Green Lanterns, I've read before. I love the animated stuff, but I really liked what they did with Rebirth. Man, I think it was my favorite part since the all new 52 that DC has done. What did you think about that particular run with the Green Lanterns and all that? You know, the Ring Wars and all that stuff around it.
Right. I mean, I think you and I've had this conversation before. Anything post 52, I'm a pretty big critic of. I think there was a lot of mistakes,
It's
with
true.
52 on forward, but pre 52, it really felt like DC really just had like Crisis on Infinite Earths, like over and over and over again. Like we
Yes.
had so many different flavors of that. Like they could only do like one thing, like one epic storyline until the Lantern Wars came and we had Rebirth. And I've always been a huge, they tell you can kind of, they say you can tell your personality by which is your favorite Green Lantern, like, Kilowog or Hal or John Stewart or, Guy Gardner. I actually always really like Kyle Rayner simply because he
Yeah, he's good.
proved like what you could truly do with the ring once you had somebody whose imagination, because they, one's a pilot, one's a soldier, right? Like these are guys who are strong of will and strong of character, but like they don't have as much of the dynamic imagination as a graphic design artist has, right? And so I really like how they stretch the power of the ring and they stretch the lore of the ring with
Yes,
Kyle's run, and it's really that run that leads into Rebirth and all of that stuff, right?
right.
And
It's
so
true. Yeah.
I think that we did something really kind of special with all of that stuff, the Lantern Wars, Rebirth, Darkest Night, all that stuff. I think is really gave DC some meat on its bone beyond just like regurgitating Crisis over and
Yeah,
over. I mean, like, gun to your head, like what can you think like epic story wise? Because like if you look at Marvel, we've got so much stuff like Secret Wars. The heroes versus each other, right? There's all these like epic storylines of Marvel, but it just felt like DC for the longest time was just over and over. See, Crisis on Infinite Earths, Crisis on Infinite Earths, Crisis on Infinite Earths, right? So it was for me, it was the first time that I felt DC finally stretched itself outside of
yeah.
like the real shtick that it kind of just did over and over again.
No, I agree 100%. The Ring Wars and all the stuff around that with Rebirth, it literally was the first time I had seen them expand something and really
Right.
expand it. I mean, they went deep, right? We got freaking Indigo lanterns now. I mean,
Yeah.
they went kind of crazy, and I loved it. I loved it. Atrocitus was an amazing addition. Even the new girl, what's the new Lantern girl? What's her name? I can't remember. That's another Ethan creation, by the way.
I mean,
Um,
it was because of the Lantern Wars that we got what is for a lot of people I know the favorite character that they have of Lantern, like because Green Lanterns is always or the Lantern like arc in general was always a bit of a mystery to like non comic book fans. Like they would know Superman or Batman or Wonder Woman or Flash, but when it came to like the Lantern Corps, they'd be like, I got no clue, right? There's a whole big thing with that. But then, thanks to the Lantern Wars, we get Dexstar, and let me
yeah,
tell you, I know a lot of people who aren't super into comics, but they love Dexstar, this
yeah,
this
he is cool.
murderous cat.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
and they did some
just a
cool
lot.
stuff with him actually. It was neat.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, but no, that's not a bad choice. It's I can't. I know you were trying to ask that question of well, what would I compare to that, and I wouldn't. I don't
Right.
like all these events that they constantly kick off. I don't. I'm one of the in the group that doesn't like that. I much
Mm.
prefer when comic book characters are kind of stuck in their own world. Occasionally, have them do a little team up or like an annual type of crossover, which is what the annuals did originally, if you remember.
Oh yeah.
I didn't mind that, but I kind of like Spider-Man to be in Spider-Man's world. I don't need all this other crossing over stuff. I'm just in that camp. Some people do love it, and that's fine too. Whatever you like. Yeah, no, I think what they did with the Lantern Corps in particular, Rebirth, absolutely adored. Now, I think you remember when the new 52 came out, you and I don't remember exactly what you did with it, but I know I read every damn book. When New 52 dropped, I read everything for quite a while, right? And it went downhill pretty quickly, unfortunately. But I do remember one thing. I could talk about just a reboot type of thing. And one thing I did really like what they were doing was their reboot of Action Comics with Superman. I did
Right.
love that for quite a while, and then they got sideways with it. And of course, they brought Michael Bendis, frickin' Bendis. I mean, yeah, don't put him on Superman. I don't know who was thinking. But anyway, I'm not going to get into that. But I did enjoy that Action Comics, particularly run of the New 52. But there's not much better things to say about that. But Rebirth was a big thing. Was there anything else in Rebirth that you liked?
Um, really, just the lore behind the Green Lanterns was always very superficial, and adding into the extra lore that there was more than just the Guardians and there just so much, right? The
Mm,
really, like you said, expanding the lore
yeah.
beyond like what felt like a very superficial look at it for decades, right?
hmm
Like, can you remember pre 52 and pre all that stuff? Like, what was the like what depth we got to Lantern lore prior to that?
Well, there was some, but nowhere near. I mean, they just exploded it by like a factor of 100, dude.
Totally. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, like, completely.
yeah.
So yeah, and the stuff they did with Ion, um, having Kyle Rayner become basically the good version of what Hal Jordan was trying to accomplish with the rings and stuff. Oh,
Right.
it's just all amazing and really good. So yeah, I nothing but a fan from my side of really everything that they tried to accomplish that, and I think they were very successful with it.
Yeah, no, you mentioned Blackest Night and stuff with the Black Lanterns, and that was really neat. what they did with that, and they gave him a lot of opportunities to do things. Yeah, I liked it. There we have another friend of the show. Actually, I do the fan version of his pro show, but Mike S. Miller. And he, of course, is the one who did the whole. Oh, I can't remember what they call that. What's the thing? That's a video game series too, where Superman basically loses his shit because Joker kills Lois and he kills Joker and he basically decides to. What's that called?
Injustice.
Injustice. That one. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But they had that came out. That was part of Rebirth, wasn't it?
Well, I think no, because Injustice is its own like alternate timeline or
Right,
alternate
but I mean,
dimension.
it was similar time, wasn't it?
Uh, I think Injustice was before that, if I remember correctly, because uh, the Rebirth is like 2000. Uh,
I'm not
yeah, I'm not
100% sure, but
I'm not
anyway,
100%
we
sure.
have had conversations with Mike about it. And he, I think he did a really good job. I mean, he was the lead guy for this, the Justice League, Superman, all that kind of stuff in Injustice. He did a lot of the art on that, and I think
Right.
he did a really good job. The only thing he really, really hated, and he bitches quite a lot. I don't know if you've ever listened to Mike S. Miller, but he really, really, really had an issue with Jim Lee because Jim did the overall design for the characters, and Mike took care of doing the sequentials and stuff. But I guess Jim Lee overdeveloped the costumes for them, and it made it very difficult for artists to be timely in their illustration. So I know Mike had talked about that quite a bit, but I mentioned it because that was another type of Elseworldy thing that came out that seemed to be very successful. Me personally, I hate that when they do that kind of stuff. I know it's Elseworld, and that's fine. Do whatever you want, but just stop making Superman kill people. Please stop. Stop. I just
Yeah,
don't want it.
I agree.
Hey, Thunder.
I mean, I mean,
Not long.
it's a different reality,
It
right? They're not
is.
doing the
I know.
main comic book line, and I get your perspective on it, and I don't I'm not going to say that your opinion is wrong per se, but like for characters like Superman who have been around for almost 100 years,
Yeah, I know.
right?
Yeah.
In who has had multiple comic books released monthly, so like not just like there's not just like one Superman comic, but there's like multiple Superman comics. So I mean, at a certain point, like, don't they run out of stories to tell if you're not
Yes,
shaking it up and trying different things?
Yeah, I
which
get
is
it.
why they should stop running Superman comics constantly.
Yeah,
I
no,
mean,
you
that's
want him to become like a MacGuffin, yeah.
Yeah,
And that makes sense too. Yeah, no, I understand. I totally understand. I'm not saying you shouldn't read it. I don't personally like it.
is
The
it
best.
worse than he was like split into two bolts of electricity, to the red and blue Superman?
Oh my God. God damn it.
ah,
Actually, I did read Red Sun, and that was a pretty good little limited series there, dude. It
Red
was
Sun is
well.
amazing.
Yeah, it was well done.
Yeah.
So I know they can. I just it irks me because Superman is different. He's unique of any superhero or heroic characters throughout the world, right?
yeah.
Because he's transcended comic books. He's more than a comic book character. He's an icon, right?
Mm.
And that's different. I mean, even some amazing characters like Son Goku or Batman, or something like that. These characters are well known. Everyone knows who Batman is, but he's not iconic in the way Superman is. I mean, shit. I mean, Superman was literally the symbol of America. He would go and shake the hands with the president of the frickin' United States. I mean, in real life with George Reeves, right?
Yeah.
He just became something more than that, and I don't know. I'm old fashioned, I guess, Ben.
He's our modern day Hercules, uh, like for the global society, I guess you would call it, because there's a few things that pretty much no matter where you go in the world, everybody knows, except for like really backwater places. Coca-Cola and Superman.
Yeah,
Everybody knows them.
yeah,
But
Even if
that's
they don't like verbalize it, they know the symbology of Superman. They know that S.
yeah. People have abound with tattoos of it, and of
Yeah.
course he's beyond that. He's you mentioned Hercules. I would say he's Perseus.
I was about to say Hercules is a like if you know like the original mythology, like Hercules was a bit of an SOB,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right?
Oh, I know.
He's
I'm just
Thor.
saying. Like, I don't mean like character wise. I just mean like importance. But Perseus is even more so for the ancient world. So yeah, you're probably right.
But then like haven't we had so many different like interpretations of Hercules as well, like
Yeah.
in different presentations? So I
In
mean
different
that's
cultures.
yeah, and I guess that's part of my point is that he I'm going to agree with you, but my agreement is not going to be to the degree that we like he is immutable in that he is so embedded in the cultural zeitgeist that it influences and becomes like different like I'll give you another example like Sherlock Holmes, right?
Mm,
There's lots of different interpretations of Sherlock Holmes, and it's like the most played character in television and film and stuff, right? And you could say that that is sort of the iconic, British character that has worked its way into the cultural zeitgeist
sure.
worldwide, right?
Yeah.
But due to that, right, there are thousands of different interpretations of Sherlock Holmes, right? Some were like the movie where like he's actually an idiot and it's Watson who's the genius, but
Oh
like,
yeah, yeah,
yeah, you know what I'm talking about, right?
yeah.
Um, but my point being is that if he's that embedded into the cultural zeitgeist, that means he has to be malleable to different interpretations as part of that cultural like adherence or cultural embeddedness.
No, no,
Well,
no.
that's one of the reasons why I think with Superman specifically, you could very easily and with very little difficulty for the character overall, just have him take pauses so that they can come up with something important for him to do. Because when Superman's doing mundane things, to me, and I think to a lot of people, that's when he's boring.
Yeah, yeah,
When he's in the big crisis and he's fighting like Darkseid or something, that's when he's awesome. When he's
yes.
actually against something that can challenge it, but you can't do that all the time because then it just that loses its luster. So I personally think the best route for Superman would be to give him a break every so often and then have him come back. Not like kill him off every time, just he just doesn't have his own run. He shows up in other people's books sporadically, like Justice League books or whatever.
Which
And
they've kind of done with him,
yes,
because they have his son running around, but that's failing horribly because, I mean, it
yeah,
just was a dumb move what they did with it. But they in a way they have done that with Kal El actually.
yes, and I think that's smart, and I think it'll preserve. Uh, I guess the best word is the luster of the character. It's how can I miss you if you never go away? It's that kind of thing. Whereas a guy like Batman is much simpler, much more human
Oh yeah,
character. So he can be around more because you can do more with him because danger is much more prevalent to him. Whereas Superman, very few things actually threaten him. So it's a lot less interesting. That's why it's so hard to write for him because he's just so damn powerful. So it's hard to find something that's interesting for him to a challenge for him, right? That's the
sure,
point of it is him
that's true.
overcoming a challenge.
Yes,
And I
I
think if you do long enough breaks, you can either come up with something cool or build to something that requires a Superman like character to handle it.
Right, which brings us into the whole crisis thing. And thank you very much, Eric. I appreciate it. Eric, we're going to have an interesting conversation today that needs old people. You might want to come in here, actually. But
Hey there, why haven't you been in here in a while?
yeah, I know he hasn't been in here a while. He
We can
he
talk
just yells at us
appliances.
from the chat. Yeah, well, you could talk appliances. But I know Ben wants to respond to that. But real quick before you do, one thing it's kind of interesting when you're talking about Hercules, and of course, comic books characters are the modern gods, right? I mean, that's what they are, modern
Yeah,
mythology. And it's kind of interesting because when you talk about the different interpretations of Hercules, and I'm not talking comic book, I'm talking, culturally around the world. You have, of course, Thor. You have Susanoo here in Japan. Hercules in particular is a character you find in every single solitary culture, and
yeah,
that particular story of him fighting the Hydra. Is you can find all over the world. There's literally hundreds of versions of that particular story. And of course, the reason for that was because of, the Aryans, people were just so wanderlusty. They went everywhere. And I think that was one of their early core stories. We don't know, of course, what they called him, but it was one of their early core stories that just kind of got embedded on top of everything.
Yep.
Whereas we know with the Silk Roads later, some other characters and stories would travel around the world and become kind of unified. But Hercules is one of the oldest stories, and it would be neat if someone could dig out what his original name was, because it is probably the most embedded mythological character ever.
Yeah.
It's pretty
Yeah.
interesting.
I'd say historically, yes. I'd say Soup beats him now because like I've been all over the world. Everywhere you go, people know who Soup. They at least know the symbol, right?
Oh, sure.
They know of that symbol, and that is impressive. There's very few things like that. Like Coca-Cola is one of them. Okay, the word okay, the English word, that's all over the world. But other than that, there's very few things that just cross all borders like that. And
Yeah.
Superman's one of them.
Yeah. No, I've actually seen a South American tribals
Mhm.
wearing a Superman shirt.
It's
It's pretty
awesome.
impressive, dude. Yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ben.
Um. Oh God, what was I going to say? I lost my I lost my mental thread.
Was it about Superman taking breaks? Are you going to respond to that
Uh,
idea?
no, I got it again. No, what I was going to say is it feels like often a missed opportunity in a lot of like modern movies for him and modern takes that we only had like one villain really tackle, I feel, Superman in an intelligent way, right? To create sort of a Kobayashi Maru for him, right?
Right.
And that was the first Superman movie with Christopher Reeves and the two, like, nukes that were going off, and he had to make a logistic choice on who do I save, right?
Yeah.
And it feels like they always just do a harder medicine villain against him, and we haven't really had anyone try to take like the intelligent route with Superman, and it feels just kind of annoying.
It
I
Yeah.
does.
think that I think that's what they were trying to do with Batman v Superman. It just didn't make any sense.
No.
No,
Like
it
what?
was a mess. Yeah, it was a
Yeah,
mess.
they did a weird thing where they were making Lex Luthor basically,
A boob.
um, well, Facebook. They were making him,
Yeah.
the Facebook guy, right? And they literally hired the actor who played him in the Social Network,
They
right?
did. Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
the energy was completely wrong,
Yeah.
and the mode like the we didn't understand the motivation, we didn't understand the purpose, we didn't understand the goal, and so it was like a completely missed opportunity. It didn't make any sense, right? So I just wish that like you said, like have him come out when there's a real threat, or if you're going to have him come out, give something that presents like a true like ethical challenge to him, because just being the good guy isn't good enough when you have to make a moral
Yeah.
choice, right?
Yeah. Fair point. Yeah, it
And
is.
he
The
did like
shaved
Captain
one
Kirk.
has
He
come.
cheated.
Old man's in the house.
The funny thing is he did like Captain Kirk in that movie. He cheated, bastard. How
Yeah.
he got
Well,
out
I
of his
mean,
Kobayashi Maru.
that's the
He did,
solution, right?
yeah.
But yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, and I took my kids, Ben, to go see the Batman versus Superman, and you know how my kids absolutely adore Batman, right?
Right.
And my son almost fell asleep during it, and my daughter literally said out loud in a Japanese movie theater, by the way, "Boring."
Oh,
Yeah, it
harsh.
was not good, dude. Now, of course, my wife fell asleep, but that's normal. But yeah, that movie sucked balls, dude. That was
Yeah,
bad.
real bad.
Yeah.
It was rough to watch because like I did like the thing I was worried about the most was the Ben Affleck Batman, and I didn't mind that. It wasn't crazy to me.
Yeah.
So it was okay. It wasn't like I wouldn't consider it fantastic, but he wasn't bad. I think he did what he needed to, and he filled the role okay. And I like Henry Cavill as Superman. I think
Me
he
too.
cuts a real good Superman. It's just the plot.
The
It's
writing.
the
Yeah.
plot that's atrocious, and yeah, there's so much wrong with it.
Yeah.
So
I won't admit this publicly, but Ben
Uh-oh.
Affleck is certainly way better than Christian Bale as Batman. I didn't say that,
I'm
but
not.
Ooh.
he was the
Hey,
least troublesome in that by far.
he's Affleck can keep his mouth closed like when he's just idling around, rather than have duck face the entire time in the bat suit.
Yeah, I know it. We don't need that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even think people were intimidated. They were confused. What? What did
Yeah.
you just say?
Can you run that by me again?
Yeah, I know, right? I am going to move on to today's show, but before I do, Eric, would you like
Hey,
to bob in on the conversation or just pass?
I'll pass. Yeah, I'll hop in on the next one. Well,
Okay, good, good, good.
Like that. I
All
like
right,
that.
well, here we go. Of course, we start this comic book show off with doing a highlight of some characters, so let me get into it. Righty here. Now, um, I am
We got.
sure by looking at the
Oh,
screen, you think I'm going to talk about Iron Fist.
I mean that would be the
Yeah,
normal assumption when
be
you
the
show a
normal
picture of
thing.
Iron Fist. Yeah.
Iron Fist is a cool character, and I should do a whole thing on him. But he this character is cooler than his story is the problem, right?
Yeah.
Because he looks cool, but there's been some tragedy in as far as who was put in charge of writing stuff. Not to mention Bendis again, in regards to Iron Fist. But basically, of course, you guys know this is Danny Rand, and he ended up being teached by the people at the Kunlun, and he came back, and some of his coolest stuff was when he was with Luke Cage. Heroes for Hire. That was some of the best stuff they did. And of course, he ended up, I don't know if they married, but he's been with Misty Knight forever. And of course, they had babies, or they were supposed to have a baby, and then something happened. But of course, that's comic books. But I'm not going to talk about it today. But I wanted to put this up because I do think, as far as displaying martial arts in comic books, as far as a martial artist, many superheroes use martial arts, of course. But as far as a martial artist in comic books, it's got to be one of the most successful ones. Now, I hear you you manga nerds out there screaming. I hear you. But no, shut up. All right. So anyway, so we have Iron Fist. But that's not what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about Mortal Kombat.
Oh.
Now,
Oh.
Mortal Kombat.
Oh.
Mortal Kombat, you're saying, Chester, that's a Midway arcade game. And yes, yes, it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
But some of you who didn't go to the arcade, which is most of you, and Eric here might remember this. But when we went to the arcade and you played a Mortal Kombat game, and I'll talk about MK1, by the way. Right?
Oh yeah.
They would have a screen after you got your ass kicked that would offer you to mail out for $3, I do believe it was, if I remember correctly, and you could get a Mortal Kombat comic book. Do you remember that, Eric?
I don't remember that.
I
No.
I
remember
do.
it. I used to play Mortal Kombat when my father would go bowling.
Oh, there
They
you
had the
go.
Oh,
Mortal Kombat in the arcade in the little bowling alley, and yep, I remember that.
Yeah.
And I wasn't
It's,
allowed to get it, and I was pissed. I remember
yeah,
it
I think
because
it was three
you're bringing up
bucks,
painful memories.
which was kind of expensive, really, at that time. But I remember very clearly. And of course, they with each release of Mortal Kombat in the arcade, and of course later on, we would get these comic books for each new arcade game. And they were put out by Midway themselves, which is kind
Yeah.
of weird. And here's a look at one. Yeah, yeah, it was $3. There you go. But yeah, you could get a comic book. You could send away and order it, right? And then of course they decided to get a little more serious because Mortal Kombat was a absolute cultural defining moment in arcade and video games in general, especially when it came onto the I think it was PlayStation, right? Originally, um,
Sega Genesis, I think.
was it Sega Genesis? Okay,
Yeah,
um,
Yeah,
Genesis
that's
and
when the
Super
uproar
Nintendo.
came about.
yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean, Mortal Kombat was actually like a cultural revolution, is how important it was. I know if you didn't live through it at the time, you wouldn't necessarily understand that. But it was important. It changed things, right? And one of the big things that pushed the boundary on was the idea of the graphic nature of a video game, right? But as the comic books went on, of course, they ended up dropping it over at Malibu, and Malibu had, I think this was the first one, the two-parter with Mortal Kombat, and then they did it for a while. There were plenty of other ones. They had some special runs and things like that. But ultimately, what happened with Mortal Kombat was they did. I didn't grab the reference, but they did Mortal Kombat versus DC superheroes, right?
Wait.
And it was like a showdown between them, one of those kind of crisis crossover type of comic books, which can be interesting. And the reason they did that was to see if there was enough interest, which there was, and then DC Warner Brothers bought Mortal Kombat. right? So this was in all that transfer time, and in the end, I think it hurt Mortal Kombat a little bit by being bought by Warner Media. I'm not sure exactly where it stands now, but we know of all the kind of nonsense that's been going on with Mortal Kombat 11, and the male gaze and all that kind of nonsense.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, it did show up with the Mortal Kombat 10 runs and all the stuff on DC Comics, and there was some pretty good stuff. And I have to say that the Mortal Kombat 10 DC stuff is the best. Of all the Mortal Kombat comic books by far, the art is really good. The stories are good. They actually, in these comic books, they solidified the story of Mortal Kombat. Now,
Mhm.
before I move on to the story of Mortal Kombat, because that's really what I want to talk about today, I do want to get any kind of interjections here from you guys in regards to the Mortal Kombat series or the comic books themselves.
I love Mortal Kombat. I always have. I've always been a huge like nerd for MK. I don't know why. It's just something about it has always just completely captured my imagination
Yeah,
and like the lore of it and everything. Even though it's not like the deepest lore in the world, I just like it. It's good.
simple.
And yeah, it's simple. It tells the story it needs to, and it gets out of the way. Um, the new games have been. They had a problem for like 2 games. They decided to go a different direction, and but from what I could tell, most people didn't like it. So they went back with 11, and I did like the story of 11 a lot actually. Um, so hopefully they continue down that path and actually do listen to their fans, because there was some outcry at where they had taken the story and the things they'd done with like Liu Kang and stuff.
Right.
Because people love Liu Kang,
Yeah.
and I love Liu Kang, and I didn't want Liu Kang to be relegated to a side character, which is what they had done.
Yeah.
And
And I think
this
that's
new
what they're
game
going to do.
fixes that.
Continue
No,
with
this
it.
new game fixed it completely. He's
I'm talking
definitely
about
the
the
main
movies.
character. Oh yeah, the movie's a joke. I don't know who they gave the reins to with that movie, but it's just I don't even they create a brand new
Okay,
character.
keep that because I'm leading into it.
Uh-oh. Well, anyway, the movie's a joke, but MK I think is great. I really like MK. I've never read the comics. I should. I've never read the comics, but I do really like the whole lore and the whole world of it. I hope that they. I think Warner Brothers does still own it. NetherRealm Studios is who makes the games and who pretty much handles all the lore and stuff. But it's headed by the guy who created it, so it's still in the same
It
hands. It's
is.
just different
That's
ownership.
true. And I do
Yeah,
have MK1, 2, and 3 in the comic book.
yeah. Those
I
are
do.
those are the best. The first 3, that trilogy was that was something else, man.
Yeah.
I remember playing it back in the day, and I remember all of the ridiculous congressional hearings over a video game, and it was just
Yeah.
mind-boggling that
Yeah.
they cared this much. Uh, and now we have an entire rating system, thanks largely and mostly to Mortal Kombat. There was other games too, but that was the big one because it was just
It's
so
okay.
popular.
It bled over into music and Dean Schneider gave him one. So
Yeah, he
Oh,
did.
yes, he
That was great.
did.
he did, baby. I mean, they didn't expect that to show up in front of him, huh? Yeah.
But not
They thought he was a
to be
dumb
that
rocker.
articulate.
Yeah,
Right?
that's the thing. If you wanna see one of the most amazing anti-Tipper Gore moments in history, go watch Dean Schneider talking to the committee on what was that? What they call committee on something. But freaking genius move by Dean Schneider. And of course, the ironic thing is they had chose Twisted Sister as being one of the things that was horrible, and they didn't do their research. They was like, oh, they call it Twisted Sister because if you go listen to any Twisted Sister song, it's actually it's positive. It's not negative. It's talking
That's
about
right.
drugs aren't good for you. It's talking about, be honorable, be responsible. Dean Schneider is the most opposite of any kind of negative, bad thing you could possibly find. I know it
Yeah,
looks weird. It's the theater that Alice Cooper started. Oh,
yeah.
Vincent there. That's all it is. But don't get me on that. I'm getting off of that. But yes.
Question though, why would you call yourself Alice Cooper when you have an awesome name like Vincent?
Would you
I think
like
that's a
me to
great
tell you?
name.
I'll tell you.
No, I don't want you to tell
Um,
me because you'll go down a rabbit hole for an hour.
I
I
will.
know you.
Second rule of fan speak: never ask Chester a question.
That's true. Don't do that. But it is kind of neat. But it's named after a 18th, 17th or 18th century witch. Yeah. Um,
Interesting.
Yeah, but Alice Cooper, I'm not going to go into a big old long thing about it, but Alice Cooper is one of the greatest things to ever happen to music. He created the whole theater show that
Yeah.
still continues with some people today. Alice also is one of the nicest human beings you'll ever meet. Do you realize not only is he a Christian, he's a deacon and he's a Bible school teacher.
It doesn't make any sense. Look at him.
He
Wait,
helps
what?
so many people. He's been married to the same lady forever. He's got a bunch of kids. He's the sweetest, nicest, kindest, pure-hearted human you'd ever meet. Alice Cooper.
So many of them, what people would think of as like these hard, super edge rockers are like that. They're
Yeah.
just totally normal dudes.
Well, that's why
Completely normal.
Alice is so much better than Marilyn. And of course, Alice inspired Marilyn Manson. I mean, Marilyn is just taking up the hat from Alice, is what he's doing. But the difference is Alice is pure theater, where Marilyn
Yeah.
made the mistake of trying to live the life. And of course, he screwed himself up bad, dude. But anyway, that's all. See, you did it. You got me off
No,
the tangent.
I
You
take
did.
zero responsibility. Zero.
Back to Mortal Kombat, Eric.
Mortal Kombat.
That's one of those things I think just about everybody, especially in America, they know that song. We all know the Mortal Kombat song. We can all hear it in our heads. If you've ever played a video game, you've probably heard it or just watched it. Popular culture. It's another one of them things that just kind of transcends its original medium. It's interesting.
That's true. Now it is really interesting with Mortal Kombat because there's many fighting games that have been around for a while. And Ben and I were talking about this earlier. Neither he nor I are really the fighting game type of gamers. But the other real iconic fighting game, of course, is Street Fighter.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but Mortal Kombat seems to be more epically legendary than Street Fighter. Explain that to me, Ben. Why is that true?
Um, it appeals to kind of a different audience. Like so, reason like so, Street Fighter is much more um in the echelon of like professional game fighters because gets into this thing about like hitbox along with like
That's true.
complexity of move sets. And so like Street Fighter has a really delicate like parry system to where if you parry at the exact right time you can completely negate an opponent's attack, right? And there's been some pretty epic displays of proficiency where someone does like their ultimate move in Street Fighter and it gets completely negated by somebody just with complete perfect timing pairing at the exact right time multiple times to negate it, right? So due to like the perfection of like the hitbox and the more sensitive like control scheme that allows for more complex like combos and maneuvers and stuff like that, Street Fighter is really like embedded itself in the echelon of professional like contests for game fighting games. Mortal Kombat, yeah, esports. Whereas Mortal Kombat is more into the, I don't want to say like the gore aspect of it, right? But it's much more of a show and production, right?
Yeah.
And Injustice kind of carried that same thing across with itself, right? You play the Injustice games that are very much inspired by Mortal Kombat due to the extreme nature of which you can see the the cutscenes that are involved in some of the move sets where you see like Flash like grab a dude and run him through like paradox universe and stuff. So Mortal Kombat in that same regards has always been much more about the dog and pony show than it has been about the nitty gritty mechanics that Street Fighter is usually about.
That's a good answer.
That's true. It's much more sizzle and a lot less steak. Street Fighter's a steak. It's it's the hard meat that the hardcore gamers dig into very religiously. And MK, there's some hardcore gaming in MK too, but it's nowhere near the level.
Yeah.
It's much more casual, even though it's even way more hardcore, which is kind of a weird thing.
Yeah, and it is interesting. I mean, I'm more of an MMO guy. You guys know that. But I've certainly played shooter, FPSs and fighting games with my son. It's weird that my son turned out to be a really good gamer because I'm mediocre at best when it comes to those kind of things. But I don't know if you know this, Ben, but you remember that first Splatoon that came out, the first one? Set and his local buddies here in Saiki, Nangun, they were the world champion of Splatoon.
Oh, cool!
Isn't that? Yeah, I was like, what? I actually watched one of their championship fights. That was pretty cool. And he's also a really, really good. His team, his Rainbow Six team, is really good too. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why my son turned out to be a good video gamer. I mean, in those type of video games, but it's the Asian blood in him, and that twitch, that quick twitch response. I think is what I blame it on my wife. That's what I should say.
Blame?
Sure, but he's not doing much now. Of course, he's concentrating on his studies. But it was weird that he turned out to be really good. But he likes those things, and he's a big Street Fighter guy. He really likes those that new one that came out, which seemed to have a clunky drop, but it has seemingly improved itself. But nevertheless. Continue on Mortal Kombat here. Now, the reason I brought this up and wanted to talk about it today is because I wanted to talk about the movie. Now, has everyone here seen the new movie?
I have, yeah.
I have.
No.
Okay, well, don't watch it, Eric.
I had heard bad things, so I
Yeah.
didn't watch it.
Well, now here's the thing: there has been some bad Mortal Kombat media. There have been,
Yeah.
right? But the original Mortal Kombat, for as clunky and unperfect as it was, the movie was fun. It was a lot of fun. Christopher Lambert as Raiden was great,
Yeah.
and I kind of want to talk a little bit about the movie today because, we covered it a little bit here, but I hadn't seen it yet, and a lot of the stuff I was hearing from was people complaining about changes and things, and that's not the problem with the movie. For instance, in the game, I played Mortal Kombat plenty. I don't remember that Raiden was any kind of specific race. It was kind of hard to tell what he was, really, right? And Christopher Lambert was chosen because his Highlander was a big hit and he was popular at the time. And it was a good choice because he was fun. He was a lot of
Oh, and
fun
that
as
voice.
Raiden.
That voice of his is
And the
just
voice. That's true.
godly. It
He does
sounds
have a
like
good
what a
voice.
god should sound like.
But this new one, it has problems on so many levels. And I want to talk about before I get to the characters. I want to talk about one of the big problems. And I'm curious what you guys think, because it seems to me that I really feel that they had two cinematographers on that movie. There was one cinematographer that had the Hollywood look, like especially with the opening scenes with that pretty good actor who is playing Scorpion in the movie, and Sub Zero. Those two are the only good actors in the whole thing. They're actual actors. There's no other conversation beyond that. But that opening scene and a couple of scenes later, the cinematography was solid, and then all of a sudden it became a TV movie of the week. What happened?
Yeah, so I've gone on this rant before, and I'll repeat it here. Mortal Kombat is like the new movie was such a weird bait and switch and bait again. It's like a sandwich, right? Where first of all, I've always been a huge fan of Hiroyuki Sanada, right? The guy who played Scorpion.
Yeah.
He was in The Last Samurai. He was in not Logan, but
Shang-Chi.
the Wolverine, right? As
Yeah.
one of the characters, right? He's just he no, he wasn't in Shang-Chi. He was in Inception, I believe, if I
Oh yeah.
remember correctly. No,
He's pretty
no,
solid.
but he's a great actor. But and I was really looking forward to him because I really enjoy him as an actor. He did a great Scorpion. And then Joe Taslim as Sub Zero. So when they started off the movie with that interaction between them, I was like
Ooh.
surprised. I was surprised at first. I was like, "Oh, this looks really good!
Yeah,
Like
me
this is
too.
awesome." I love the action. I love the play between them. Like all of it's really good. And then it just turns to utter garbage for like a solid 60 minutes. And then at the very end, when the original Mortal Kombat theme song hits and Sonata shows up again, I'm just like, holy shit, it got awesome again. So like
Yeah.
you could really just watch like the opening fight scene and the ending fight scene and just have that like 10 minutes and you're good. That's
I
like
agree. Yeah.
all you need from the movie because
Yeah.
everything else is just kind of hot garbage.
It is. And they were hinting with a note or two here with the theme music throughout the whole thing. But I see what you're
Right.
saying. But yeah, no. And that comes back to the cinematography because those things were shot pretty well. I don't know what happened in the middle. I don't understand. The cinematography falls off the cliff. It's literally a made for TV movie in the middle. Which not
It,
even the middle, the movie, because those are very short little clips. Um,
it it really felt like it relied a lot on Kano to be comedy relief and to like give even a sense of like pacing to the film because the film
Right.
was like so oddly paced. It's just the whole thing is just weird. It's
It
just a
is weird.
weird movie.
And Kano's comic relief was fine. It's fine. I'm not going to complain about it, but I do want to complain about some of the other stuff because I can't believe it. I heard a lot of people complaining about Sonya, right? Let me go
Yeah.
ahead and get into this right now. I probably should go one by one, but let's start with Sonya Blade. Now, the girl playing Sonya, as far as the acting, it was bland, but it wasn't bad. It was just uninteresting. She did nothing. They did nothing to make me interested or care about Sonya at all. At all.
Mm.
People are
I
complaining
think
about, oh,
all the
she's
characters.
just the Mary Sue. No, she's not. That's
No,
not the problem. The problem is she just is boring and her character is uninteresting and uninspiring. If you look at the first movie, that girl they brought in at the last minute because the other girl broke her arm or leg or something like that, she couldn't fight at all, and they had to work around it. But at least I liked her. Yeah.
Yeah,
no. I
so
mean, I think this criticism you have can be leveled against like the vast majority of like actors and characters, sans Scorpion and Sub Zero,
Oh no,
right?
it's
yeah,
true, but it gets worse. The reason I mention her first is because she's nowhere near the worst thing in this. Nowhere near.
Right.
My
Yeah.
God,
Exactly.
no. I'm just saying it's just uninteresting. I don't care about Sonya,
Yeah.
and I should care about Sonya. I should. So it is a failure. But let's go one by one. The new character, it's not really new. Cole Young is basically a way to kind of introduce the origin of Scorpion. Oh, spoilers, by the way. But
yeah.
I do believe he showed up in the Mortal Kombat X run by DC Comics. I do believe he did. Someone could correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think he's completely new, actually. But nevertheless,
There might be a something similar, but I think that even the name they said was new as far as I know. But they
maybe.
probably took it from somewhere else.
But his character reminded me of something. So
Yeah,
maybe that's true. But the thing with this character here by Louis Tan, once again, it's very similar to the girl. Boring, cardboard,
yeah.
uninteresting, could care less, right?
Yeah.
And
Which is ridiculous because so they open with their best foot, right? Which you should do. They
yeah,
took their two best characters are the two what you see right out of the gate. Okay, fine. Then you should have made the movie about them
Right.
because they were great. They were fantastic. Their chemistry was great. The menace between each other was great. They did everything they needed to do in that first whatever it is, 15 minutes, whatever it is. And then after that, nobody else lived up to it. No one. No
no,
one came close.
no. And actually, it got worse.
Oh, it got so bad.
It got worse. But this guy is so cardboard. But let me get past these two characters and get into the real problem here. Liu Kang.
Yeah,
Now the guy's body is freaking ripped. And
yeah.
I don't think I have a problem with him visually as Liu Kang. I think the original guy they had in the original movie was better. But I don't. When I saw him, I was like, oh, okay, that's Liu Kang. Okay, and he is ridiculously ripped. But my God, I don't think I've ever seen a worse actor. I mean, you can go Tommy Wiseau is better actor than this. I'm not shitting you. It's so
Uh,
bad, dude.
well, Brie Larson.
No, way better. She's miles better than this guy,
Oh
this
my god.
Lindy Lin.
He's way off. He's way off. Yeah.
It's really bad, dude. And here's the problem, and this is going with what Roger just said here in the chat. We know that Liu Kang is the hero. He's the hero, right?
Yes.
Now, a lot of people complaining about the way they did this, and there is no Mortal Kombat. But I had no trouble with the idea of them doing a movie or two leading into the Kumite. I don't mind that. That's not a problem, right? At all. But you can't go anywhere with this dude. You
No, not with his acting ability. If he can somehow upgrade his acting like significantly, maybe. But right now,
Dude,
no,
we need a
no.
deal with the devil here.
Yeah, they need to just drag out what's his name from the old one. I mean, yeah, he might be a little old now, but that's all right. He'll pull it off. I think he's still in
He was
great shape
good
too. Yeah,
from the
he was great.
original.
Yeah,
He
Yeah,
was good.
I liked him.
Yeah, he was great.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name. Robin something, I think. Robin Shu or something like that. That's at least that was his Hollywood name. I don't know if that's his real name or not. But But yeah, he was fantastic. He was in a few movies in the mid '90s as basically the kung fu guy, but he always killed it. So I never had a
You,
problem with him.
the more I think about the original Mortal Kombat film, that film was much better than it had any right to be at the
It
time.
was. That's true.
Yeah.
That is true. Yeah. But Eric, you've seen the movie, you said, right? No?
No, not
Oh,
the new
no.
one. The
Okay.
original
So
one, yeah, I saw years
no.
ago, but yeah.
Yeah, you don't watch this movie, dude. It'll hurt you. I almost had an aneurysm when this guy opened his mouth.
Oh, that's bad.
It's so bad, dude. It's so bad. I mean, that's the thing. I heard everyone complaining. Of course, when you have actors and directors coming out saying stupid woke shit, I mean, shut the hell up. You got a movie coming out, let it roll, dude. Let it roll. So that's fair enough. They shouldn't say anything. But I heard a lot of crap about the Sonya girl, and she's not the problem in this movie, dude. She's not. She's boring. She's uninteresting. I could care less about her. But she's not the problem, right? At all. This is the problem. Liu Kang. I mean, my God, dude. I mean, Kano was fine. He was just there for comedic relief and to be killed so Sonya could get her power. Spoilers. But I thought Jax was fine. I didn't mind Jax.
Didn't understand the weird power thing they did either. Like, why?
The
Why do
Arcana.
that?
Well,
Yeah,
they wouldn't
why do we
explain
have to
it.
explain everybody's power? They just have powers. It's fine. We
No,
don't need
that came
deep
out in
explanation.
Mortal Kombat X comic run. I remember.
I don't like
Yeah,
that. I don't like that one little bit. I think
yeah.
that's no. I
Well,
don't
it's
like
like
that one.
midichlorians, I guess. But
Basically,
Oh,
it
God,
makes them a lot less
why would you
special.
do that?
Yeah, it makes them a lot less special, in my opinion.
what'd you
Right?
guys
Because
think of
now their
Jax?
powers don't come from diverse places; they all come from the same source. It's like what? What? What?
I thought the actor who played Jax did a good job, and I thought the portrayal of Jax did a good job. But like you, I was a little lost on the whole like stick arms that like through magic grew into full robo arms,
It was
and
weird. Yeah, why didn't you just do the full tech thing on? I get what Thunder was saying, and I agree. They don't need to come from the same origin. They could be dispersed, disparate. But
Yeah.
yeah, that was weird. But overall, my point being is this Mikad Brooks here, the guy who played Jax. I thought it was fine. I had no trouble with it whatsoever. It was one of the better performances actually. But oh my God, Kung Lao, dude, dude. Liu Kang and Kung Lao, who should be, two of your most important characters in your movie, they cannot act, dude. They suck balls. Oh my God, dude. It.
well, so
Ah.
and this is the classic case of compounded problems, like writing via committee. Right. We start like Thundera said, we started on our best foot, but then like if you're setting up because look at what they did. Like they created a mystery in the beginning of the film, right?
Yep.
Why was Scorpion there to kill, or no, Sub-Zero was there to kill the family of Scorpion, right?
Right.
And because they had seriously good actors and very good portrayals and just everything like brought their A game in the beginning, and it gets everyone hooked, and then you completely abandon that for the
Yes.
next 60 minutes. It leaves a very disjointed feeling for the audience where we needed to spend a lot like that should have been like you said, Thundera. That need to be the film, and you
The
can
whole movie. Scorpion's origin. Yeah, that's what it should have
and
been.
you can do other things about it, like the Kumite and all these other things, right? The contest, and it can all build from that original rivalry into the larger story, but then like shifting over to the new character Cole Young, it all feels very jarring when we set up with the most interesting storyline with the most interesting actors and really good like fighting and stuff like that. It just was a complete shit show,
It was.
right?
Although they got the scar wrong. They put it on the side of the face instead of down the eye. I don't know why they did that. But no, you're right. And the whole movie should have been called Mortal Kombat Scorpion. Then they could have come out with another one, Mortal Kombat Jackson and Sonya. They could have
Yep.
done a few movies just introducing the characters, kind of like they did with the Marvel Universe, and then have the fourth or fifth movie be the big old Kumite, right? And they should have done that. I mean, it would have been fun. I mean, just like with Ben, when that movie started, I was like, "Oh my God, this looks awesome! Why did he get such bad review?" And then I was stabbed in the heart. But
Fell right
uh,
off a cliff. right off the
Oh
cliff.
my God! But the one thing though, because we heard a lot of bitching about it, and a lot of people were going on and on and on about Sonya thing, dude. And I don't understand it because that is not the problem in the
No.
movie. It's really
In
not.
fact, I would say Cole is a bigger problem than Sonya
Oh
is.
yeah,
Uh,
way worse because he's boring as shit. And you don't care about him. You don't care about her
no,
either.
it doesn't
But
matter at
she's
all.
just kind of typical tough girl character. She's not the problem. I don't understand all that complaining. I really don't.
When Scorpion shows back up at the end of the movie, it's exactly like Ben said. It's pretty much, oh, now the movie gets to continue. Right, here we go. We finally get to pay off this thing we set up that they had just ignored for basically the whole movie, and it was the only part that was even interesting. I mean,
Yeah,
Scorpion and Sub-Zero are probably the two most popular characters in Mortal Kombat, I would say.
sure.
So if you're gonna lead with your best foot, if you're gonna do their story, then do it.
Yeah,
There was no
no,
reason not to do it.
it's
It's a
true.
good story actually. It's actually it's one of the better ones in
It's
the
interesting.
lore.
Yeah.
So
And
do it.
and what did they do after the initial thing? They basically throw him into hell the whole movie, and then they just bring him back for a final fight.
Yeah,
And they had
it
him in
shows up.
They did, and they had him in horrible armor. That dole was more, or sorry, the chest plate was much more of a European thing than an actual
Yeah,
Jap. It looked horrible,
it
dude.
looked
What are you
Power
doing?
Rangers. It looked Power Rangers. That's what it looked like. Uh, and that's a shame because I think Mortal Kombat. I know Mortal Kombat, if done well, can be very good.
Yeah,
The the
first
the
movie's great.
basic story, the basic premise and plot is fantastical, sure, but it doesn't mean it's not solid. I mean, they couldn't have had this huge franchise if it was silly, just complete nonsense. So if you get somebody in there with some actual talent who puts in forth a serious script, like if you remember a few years ago, there was an online series that it did a little bit of like they made some changes or whatever, but they took the source material and tried to make it as serious as possible, and it was
Yeah,
fantastic. It
yeah.
was fantastic. People were hoping this movie was going to be that, and then that first 10 minutes or whatever, came out, and people were like, holy shit!" And then the rest of it just fell off a cliff. Like you said, it honestly feels like two different teams made that.
It did. It really did. I feel like the beginning and the end was done by a different team, and then the second unit did the rest of the movie. That's what it felt like to me.
Maybe
And
they
Kung
ran out of
Lao
money.
was very painful for me, particularly because this actor is absolutely atrocious. He's not as bad as Liu Kang, but he's bad. And because when I play Mortal Kombat, Kung Lao was my favorite character to play.
He's good. He's
Yeah, I
cool.
enjoy Kung Lao. He is cool.
That's what
And
he is.
yeah.
Cool.
But anyway, absolute abomination. But here is the piece de resistance. Now, I
Yeah,
don't know who this actor is, this Chin Han. Maybe he's done some good stuff, but this was freaking abysmal. Shang Tsung should be scary. He should be intimidating. He should be done in a way that you're absolutely terrified what's going to happen to your heroes because when this dude steps into the arena, right? Not only is he not intimidating, he's boring. A little less makeup, less time, please. And it's just horrible acting. It's overacting melodrama crap, and he's not interesting or intimidating in the least.
no.
I mean, my God. I mean, the Goro thing, the Prince of Pain there that they did, was fine. I had no problem with Goro. It was fine. But this was bad. I mean, Ben.
I mean, so again, the problem that they're having is the original movie had such an iconic portrayal by, again, a far superior actor. I mean, even
Yes.
look, he was so good, they've replaced the game persona
Yeah.
with him.
They did.
Like he is they haven't done that with any of the other characters, right?
Right.
He is Shang Tsung now, right? So, like, when you do that, you've created a problem that if you don't bring your A game, so it's like, think of it like this: it's like the Joker, right? Jack Nicholson did such an iconic job that people avoided the role. They didn't want to cast it again because they're like, how can we compete to this, right? And so if you're gonna like do that portrayal, you're gonna need to bring your A game, and that's what really just was the problem, is that a lot of people didn't bring their A games, right? And again, it's especially egregious because we had Sub-Zero and Scorpion who were stellar, and it stands out by so much compared to all the other portrayals. Right?
Yeah.
It's a really stark comparison.
Yeah, but you really think they would have spent a little bit more time on Shang-Chi? To be honest with you, they should have took the actor that they used for Sub-Zero and made him Shang-Chi. They should have. Because he would have portrayed it in a more intimidating way. But this was ridiculously bad, dude. I mean, Liu Kang's the worst as far as acting, but this was unacceptably bad. And then we'll get into that in a minute. But and then this. Now, people were complaining about the I guess a race swap or something with Christopher Lambert in Raiden. Like I said, I don't think that really mattered in this case at all. He's an elder god; it doesn't really matter. But my God, dude, who is this guy? Tadanobu Asano. Dude, go away, go away. I
Go
mean,
learn how to act and come back, please. Please.
he sucks so bad, dude. He sucks so bad. I mean, Christopher Lambert in the original movie was fun. He was
Yeah.
fun.
And he had presence out of his. First of all, I don't know if anybody else knows this, but me. Christopher Lambert's functionally blind. He basically can't see. He has basically no vision.
Doesn't speak.
But he has so much charisma, presence, like a Keanu Reeves like style, right? Physical presence. He just owns that role as Raiden. He might be the best part of that whole movie, and that's with a whole bunch of people who do a great job as their character.
Yeah.
And it's just because he just has that what's the word I'm looking for? That energy where he just
I was gonna say it, Chet.
he has that in spades, and it comes out as soon as he shows up on screen. He just takes over, boom, and it's a performance that feels like a rogue god would feel, and that's kind of what he is in that. Right, he kind of goes against the grain, against the rules of the gods occasionally or whatever, right? And he just nailed it. He was a perfect casting choice. So they come back now and they go for a reboot and they use this guy and they pick an Asian man. I'm sure probably to avoid the crying about a white actor playing Raiden. But could they have found anybody who had at least somewhat of that level of energy, of presence, of command? Right? He walks in and he at first he's real subtle, which was intentional, but as soon as he reveals himself to who he is, it's immediate.
Yeah.
It's immediate that you feel, oh, okay, Raiden's here. Like he just nailed it. This guy had none of that. He didn't grab my attention. If he would have told me something to do, I'd tell him to go shove it up his ass. Like there's no intimidation. There's no power behind his voice.
And someone they could have chosen who is doing nothing right now is Ken Watanabe.
Yeah,
I mean, he would have been interesting. He could be funny. Yeah. It depends. You need a good director for him, though. But this was pitiful, dude, with him. And it's interesting though, Ben. Looking at this right here, just offhand, with this Asano's name. I've never seen that name used before. Tadanobu. What does that mean? It's like the sun attracts the planet. That's Tadanobu? I mean, that's what that means, right?
I mean, yeah, my Japanese is so old, and yeah, I could be, but it's. I don't know. First of all, for my 2 cents, I think we're being a little overly gracious in Christopher Lambert's acting. I'm not going to completely disagree with you, but I'm not going to like worship the ground he walked on. I don't think he was like the greatest actor or had the greatest presence. He was good. I'll give him credit for that. But
he was good as Raiden, though.
He was fun as Raiden, right?
Yeah, fun. The word fun. Yeah, fun.
Yeah. I think there's room for a different interpretation of Raiden, depending on the overall tone of the film, and because of how serious the film started due to the assassination of Scorpion's family and the rivalry and stuff. I think there was room for a different style of Raiden in this compared to the original, because this was a lot more serious and a lot darker and stuff. So, but again, like that's part of the problem with this film is like tones all over the place, quality's all over the place, and they can't really pick what they're trying to accomplish with characters outside of the original two that we've been gushing all over, right?
Yeah.
So, and I
Yeah,
think this is exacerbated of that.
it is.
I think one of the best
It does.
descriptions for Raiden as a character, in my opinion, is he's imposing. He's
Sure.
imperious he's imposing, meaning he takes command of pretty much every situation where it's he's capable of doing so very quickly when he's done right. And this gentleman here just doesn't have that quality. He just
No,
doesn't. And
it's really bad
you
acting.
could
Yeah.
do a different interpretation of that, a different way of putting it through with a much more stoic, subtle philosopher type Raiden that kind of has that kind of like a wisdom authority, right?
Mhm.
And that would have been cool. But instead, they went with, I have no idea what you even described this interpretation. I don't even know what to call it. It was just so boring. It was so bland. And it
It was
missed the
lame.
mark.
It was.
Yeah.
Dumbs the name says Asano played Chinggis Khan. Okay, he's not a good actor, dude. It was really horrible.
Oh,
But
I'd love a big budget Genghis movie. That could be sweet.
well, I like the Marco Polo thing what they did with Kublai. That was interesting.
Yeah.
But Scorpion, of course, we've already talked about it at length. This guy, Sanada-san, did a really good job. It was the highlight of the movie. All this armor sucked balls. Sub-Zero, of course, with this guy did a great job as well. So no complaints on that. But like Ben said, watch the first chunk of the movie and the last chunk of the movie, and you're good to go. Oh my god. Oh my god. Talk about hate. That I believe the director hates Melina. I do. Because what an absolutely throwaway with Melina. Right? I mean, I mean, they make. I mean, and Melina is, she does cover her face for a reason, as you can see in the pictures. But she's supposed to have that seductive look that is completely overrun by the horror of when you do see her mouth. And this girl that they had playing, and it has to do with the costume department and makeup. It's not her fault at all, but they made her just ugly and boring and useless. And once again, Melina is not a throwaway character. She's a main story character throughout everything they've done with Mortal Kombat. Everything. And I don't understand why they did. I really feel like the director hated this character or something. It's so bad, dude.
Well, he
And
definitely didn't like Liu Kang, so I
clearly
wouldn't be
not.
surprised.
But I mean, why the hate for Melina, dude? I don't get it. Um,
Neither.
It's really weird, dude, and she was just a throwaway anyway, which is dumb. I just once again, I don't know that they really did their research, man. No problem with Goro, he was fine. And
Well, the only problem I have with Goro is they threw him away too.
they did. Of course, this article here isn't talking about Reptile. That he was just literally a reptile, which I know they changed him recently in Mortal Kombat. But the CG was fine. I think they spent a bunch of money on that scene, which so I don't have a problem with the Reptile. What was the other dude? What was the robot guy with the oxygen suit? What's his name? Cub Cub
Oh,
Cub
Cabal.
Cabal. Yeah,
Cabal.
Cabal.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I thought it was fine. There was a couple lines that were really, really bad, but overall, I didn't mind his character. But yeah, this movie is an absolute trash fire, dude. And the reason I wanted to talk about it today, and I know I've spent a lot of time talking about it here, but because it is really bad. And I think they killed the opportunity for another Mortal Kombat movie, which is sad because we all want one, right? But more importantly, all of the nonsense that we talked about a little bit, right? I covered the articles and stuff, but all the complaints I saw about this movie were not actually the problem with this movie.
No.
And it really shows that yeah, we understand there is a culture war going on. There is obviously, but people get caught up in it too much. I think because they wanted to complain about all of the progressive politic changes that were done in this, but they're not the issue. The issue is you had a shit director, shit actors, and a shit script. Well, even though the script could have been fine, because it is simple, but it's just That's the problem with this movie. It's not an SJW problem. It's just bad movie making.
When you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And
I
I think a
guess.
lot of people
Yeah.
have allowed this weird culture war we've been in to turn them into hammers, and they've become overtly sensitive to minor things largely.
Yes.
And I don't think the problem with this movie at all had anything to do with
Any of it.
leftist politics or
No.
identity politics, or no. It was just poorly cast, poorly written, and poorly directed, except for the beginning and the end.
Yeah.
Everything else
Yeah.
in the middle was just bleh.
And I kind of want to run with that theme a little bit with the other stuff I have coming up. But before I move on, I know Eric didn't see it and don't watch
I'm
it
not
too.
going to
Yeah,
now.
don't watch it. But Ben, would you like to give a closing comment on this before I move on to the next article?
Yeah, I mean, this isn't rocket science, right? You know, and it's not impossible to make a good movie, but you just kind of need to have focus. And
Yeah.
I think part of the problem that we have with this, it's films like this, right? It is the Marvel effect. Everyone wants to be up and running where Marvel is right now.
Hmm.
But what Marvel did was they put a lot of time into it. They did the Iron Man movie, they did the Thor movie, they did the Captain America movie. Like they did their intro build up movies to where now they're having very complicated, very involved and dynamic films as
They
a
did a good
result. Right?
job.
They did a good job, and they did the lore building, right? And this is the same problem that DC had, right? With their they did the Justice League way too early. They did Batman v Superman way too early, right? And it's because everyone wants to be running before they learn to crawl or walk. And I think that's the exact problem here as well, that they want to have a movie that's very dynamic and has a lot of interaction between multiple characters without giving the audience time to learn about the lore or the characters or any of this other stuff. And so everything feels like it's just shoved down your throat to compensate for the lack of 4 or 5 movies ahead of them to kind of like build you up to this point.
It's true.
And that is the crux of the problem.
It is. They're jumping the shark without the need to do so.
Right.
It's absolutely true. This
Before
movie,
the shark's even in the water.
that's true.
Right.
I mean, we saw it with the Kingsman. I mean, the first Kingsman was a great movie, and then the second one they jumped the shark. Why? Why? You had to roll, go with it. But yeah, no, this should have been called Mortal Kombat Scorpion, and they should have told that story, and that's it. Keep it simple. Just tell his story. People would have loved it, and you would have had more money coming in to make your second film, which I would have done something with maybe Jackson and Sonya or something like that.
It's
But
okay to tell a slow movie. It's okay to let characters build, to grow, to establish rapport and stuff like that. Not everything doesn't have to be rushed to be where Marvel is right now.
it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Anyway, I'm going to move on from this, but man, my God, apocalyptic failure, dude. Apocalyptic. But anyway, let's move on. This I have to before we get into stories. We got to talk about it. So go ahead. Dude.
Yeah. That's tragic. Pro wrestling legend Scott Hall to be taking off life support following complications from surgery. Since this, he fought for about 7 hours off life support, but he eventually lost. So he has actually passed now. Yeah, it's tragic. Scott Hall is a huge part of my childhood.
Sure.
I happen to be
Razor
one
Ramon,
of the lucky ones. Oh yeah, who grew up? I got to hit the very end of the '80s boom of wrestling, the Hogan era, and then the NWO Attitude Era. I was a teenager, young teenager. That to me is something I'll cherish because it was just such an amazing time to be a wrestling fan.
Yeah.
And this man right here was one of the biggest parts of that.
That's true.
And the good news is for Scott, as tragic as he was only 63. As tragic as he is that he's gone, he did turn his life around at the end for about 10 years. And he got himself clean, for the most part clean. I think he had a couple relapses, but he was a lot better than he was. He reconciled with his family, things like that. He got put in the Hall of Fame twice, once for himself, for Razor Ramon, and the other for the NWO.
Sure.
So he got to at least get some of the fruits of his labor, and he did get to live a much better life near the end by all accounts. So
That's good to hear.
yeah, the tragic part is this was just a freak thing. Like it can happen in serious surgery. He was having hip surgery, blood clot they didn't know he had, shot to his heart, gave him 3 heart attacks, and he just couldn't kick out. That was it.
Yeah. Good reference, by the way. Yeah, Ben and I were talking about this a little bit before we came online. Razor Ramon was an absolutely amazing character. I'm a
Yeah.
bit older, Eric and I, and we remember Rick Rude. And I
Mhm.
think
Yeah.
nothing against Rick because I did love his character and I love the guy. He's great, capable wrestler too. But Scott Hall's Razor Ramon was a better version of it, right?
Yeah.
So
And
yeah, I'd agree with that.
yeah, and he was a really good character and a solid, capable wrestler in the ring too. But Ben and I were talking about it because he and I were we agree that we figured alcohol would get him or something, right? Uh,
No,
but uh,
he got pretty much clean for the last about 10 years or so. Diamond Dallas Page helped him get clean, and he's pretty well stayed that way. So, I mean, I think there were a
DDP is
couple
like,
relapses, but yeah, he got a
yeah,
lot better off.
DDP is like the rehab for
Yeah,
like
he
wrestlers at this
is,
point,
he
right?
is, yeah, he
Yeah.
is,
And DDP's on a superhero show on Netflix right
and
now.
he's a gay. He's a gay
see,
Batman.
apparently.
Yeah,
The bad Batman. The whole show's horrible.
it is
Yeah, the show's
ridiculously
bad.
bad. Don't
It's
watch it.
bad. I
But
halfway through it.
Yeah, but it was cool seeing Paige though. It was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just of all the things that would have got him, this is the one nobody would have expected, right?
Yeah.
A surgery complication, because he had lived such a crazy hard life with drugs and stuff, and just, I mean, this could get anybody. This could get at any age. It can happen when you're in surgery. It's just one of those things. And yeah, he just his number was punched, I guess.
Yeah. Well, Nash, of course, here is they're quoting a lot of him, and they were like best buds. So,
Yeah,
it's I'm sure it's hit him and his family really hard. It's a shame because I mean he's way too young to be dying, and as hard a life as this guy lived, so it sounds like he fell off a ladder or something and broke a hip or something like that, and that simple thing caused his death. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous
yeah.
thinking about all he went through. But safe journeys, brother. Uh, it's sad news, man.
He had at his, I think it was his first. It was his personal Hall of Fame induction. He had a little quote that people have been passing around that was kind of beautiful. I'm assuming he wrote it, and it was something to the effect of hard work matters, or hard work pays off, dreams come true, bad times don't last, but bad guys do. And that was, he always called himself the bad guy, and it
Sure.
was because he had come back, like he had had this renaissance of his life near the end, which he didn't know was the end. Nobody did, but because he was in a horrible place when him and DDP hooked. I mean, he was like, he couldn't even walk. He was so messed up with drugs and just out of like almost 400 pounds or something like that. He was
Holy
huge.
shit, dude.
Yeah, he was an absolute mess, and Paige basically helped him patch his life back up and get his life back together. So at least he got that in the end. I'm sure it's not much of a consolation at the moment, but for people who loved him looking back, I think they'll very much appreciate that he didn't go out that way, right at the
Well,
bottom of his life.
wasn't it also DDP that got mankind walking again?
He helped him too with. He did help him with his yoga. He also basically saved Jake Roberts' life in a similar situation. Jake couldn't walk.
Snake is alive
Oh,
now because of DDP.
yeah,
Like if
Yeah.
without DDP, Jake would probably be dead as well right now.
Mm.
yeah,
And
Gee,
Jake showed
Jake
up in
was
a
he
movie
lived a rough
recently.
life.
Some
yeah.
little heartwarming Down syndrome kid. I can't remember the name of it, but we watched it. My wife and I watched it, and I was like, "Hey, Jake!" And he showed up in a movie. That was kind of cool.
Old
Uh,
Jakey Poo.
yeah, but yeah, no, awesome. DDP is doing some wonderful things. That's neat.
Yeah.
But this is unfortunate. But that's life, I guess. It just comes up and slaps you every now and then. Anyway, let's
Wake
move on.
you up.
Yeah.
Rumor. Now this is a rumor I've seen going around. Marvel Comics Vice President Sam Amidon fired.
Okay.
That's interesting.
Yeah, no, Roger Mick Foley, yeah, mankind. But
Mickles. Call him old Mickles.
yeah, well, Mick Foley is rather important if you want to get into a wrestling conversation. But
Yeah.
anyway, this rumor has been going around for a while, Thundero, and I haven't talked about it because it just seemed like a silly rumor.
Yeah.
And I left it alone. But the rumor seems to be getting some credence recently, and that's why I decided to pick this article up and talk about it. The basically the accusations against Sana Amanat, and it mainly is a Disney problem more than it is I mean Marvel Comics problem, is that uh, she was in somehow sexually harassing men at Marvel Comics, and possibly a Disney exec.
Big time.
Now I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. But it has to be really, really, really bad because we know women get away with that.
Yeah.
Men get hammered immediately for it, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with men
That
getting
is
hammered.
starting to change, though. That pendulum is shifting back,
It is.
which is a good thing, I think. If we're going to have
Yeah.
these rules, they need to apply equally.
That's true.
Um,
Yeah.
Well,
and it is starting to shift back. So she may have just been caught in the shift back, to be honest.
I don't know, dude. She's kind of important for their whole, the whole thing they got going on, right? With their, diversity and identity politics. She's a rather important part of it. And
Hmm.
because I'm not the one that's going to sit here and just hate completely and on and on and say she's useless. Because the original run on Miss Marvel was great. It
Hmm.
just got political and ruined it, right? Which is her fault, right? And she's done a lot of things to ruin Marvel. Fair enough, but she's not a talentless hack. It's like Gail Simone, right? Gail
Yeah.
Simone is just won't shut up. She's annoying. She's hateful. Yada yada yada. But she's really good at what she does, dude. She's a great writer, Gail Simone. We can't separate
Can
those
we, can
things.
we
We
just
need to
delete
respect them.
Twitter, please? Just
Yeah,
delete Twitter, and then we wouldn't even
please.
know that these people are like this. We had no idea.
well,
Right.
I mean, Twitter encourages the worst behavior from everyone, literally
It
everyone.
does.
It's
It
true.
does.
So
But the reason why I decided to talk about this is because there seems to be a lot of pushback, and in regards to this, it sounds like something happened. And the only thing we can do is really speculate about it. And it sounds like that more so than her being simply fired, she's been on suspension for a while. And they've kind of her only thing she's really been able to interact with at all is the Miss Marvel TV show, I guess, the Disney Plus show. And
Yeah.
she hasn't really been involved with Marvel comics at all. It sounds like, okay, fine. We don't know what the truth is. She's still at Marvel as far as we can see, although she does seem to be suspended. But I'm curious because, like I said, this rumor's been around a while. Right, this is not new. This has been around a while, and I just kind of figure there's a lot of hate going against it. And in all honesty, she brought that hate on herself because she's an idiot and just needs to shut her mouth. I mean, but here's the thing: how bad a thing did she do? Because, like I said, you say things are starting to come back and they should be equal. I agree, but you know as well as I do that for a woman to get this kind of heat on her compared
Yeah.
to a man, she must have done something bad, dude. I mean,
Or
really bad.
she went above her, what's the word, station, if you will, and whoever was above her just wouldn't tolerate it at all.
well,
Um,
no, I'll present a counter argument. I think the difference could be just her level, right? The degree of prominence and exposure she has makes that kind of behavior even more risky because at a certain point, your exposure and prominence becomes the risky behavior like is exacerbated by that public appearance, right? That
Right.
right.
if she was at the position she was, then maybe she would have gotten away with it more. But again, we don't even know what it was,
No.
right?
That's true.
I have seen and been a victim of like female sexual harassment in the workplace. And I, like you were saying, Thundero, it has gotten better. Like I did
Yeah.
report it, and they did take it seriously, and it was so it's something that has changed within the cultural era at this point. It's different though. Like the thing is, like you can't compare it to like what a guy would do. It's different from that
It is.
perspective.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to be fair, in this, there's a lot of little tweets and a lot of little things going on about it. And Ethan decided to jump in and speak on it. Now, I understand, Ethan is a shit stirrer. We know this. But also Ethan has broke a lot of stories, real stories,
Yeah.
He
Well, I
does
mean,
have connection. Understand,
he is
he is
he is
deeply
Ethan.
connected to the comic book
Yeah.
industry.
He's worked for both companies at a top level.
He's invented many of their
Everybody knows
characters.
him.
Yeah,
Like he is one of those guys, right? He at one
he is.
point was definitely top level in the industry, super rock star artist, if you
Yeah,
will.
yeah.
Um, and so yeah, I'm sure he has all kinds of contacts all the way to the top. Like I'm sure he could call if he wanted to. He could call Jim Lee up, and be like, "Hey Jim, how you doing?" Right? He's got that kind of clout behind him.
Yeah, he
Um,
does.
so if Ethan would have like out and out confirmed it, which he doesn't typically do unless he actually has it confirmed, then that would have been one thing. But I haven't, unless it's in here and I just didn't see it. I haven't seen him actually confirm it,
He said
so
they're
I
trying
don't
to
I
know.
think he
parachute
said
her
it's
out
just a
quietly.
rumor. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, he said that's the rumor he's hearing.
yeah, that's what is
Um,
rumor. Yeah, so he hasn't confirmed it directly.
would make sense because that's often, especially a high profile person who they've really promoted, it makes the brand look bad. So they don't want to do that. They want to just shuffle her down the line, let everybody forget about her, and move on.
Yeah, but
Because she probably didn't do anything illegal. Because if she did something illegal, that'd be different.
that's true.
But if it was just something that was unethical or whatever in the workplace, then yeah, I could see them just
Right. Well,
just
I'm
hide
just
her under the rug for a while.
I brought this up mainly to talk is curious speculation of what she might have done because I mean this isn't going away, right? It
Yeah.
isn't going away. This thing has been bouncing around for over a year, right? And it keeps popping back up. It keeps popping back up. And I'm just really curious what she must have done something. Something did happen. That's clear. But I just can't understand what a woman could do to actually cause this kind of uproar because women can get away with literal murder, dude.
I would say that the more likely scenario is that of her sexual harassment, she did it against possibly another woman or even somebody of gay sexual orientation,
Sounds
right?
like it was
'Cause
two men.
two
Oh, well, it
men.
could be gay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it
Or it's
could be
like I'm saying, it was somebody higher up the food chain who has
right.
absolutely no tolerance for it, and
Well,
Yeah,
he said
it
no,
was the
we're not
wrong
doing that.
person is what
yeah,
happened.
Right.
maybe it was because
Yeah.
it seems like one of the people is actually in Marvel Comics itself proper, and
Yeah.
the other one was actually a Disney exec, whatever that
Ooh.
means.
So she definitely hit well above her station, I guess you would
Right.
call it, if it was a Disney
Punch 'em up.
exec.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
So it's listen, I'm not gonna weep for it because this female here probably hates me and everything I stand for. So if she
yeah, she
gets
is kind
a
of
little bit
nasty.
of
She's
a
not a
little
bad
bit of
looking lady
justice,
though.
no, if she gets a little
No.
bit of justice thrown back at her for her behavior, I can't hate that. That
Yeah.
sounds like old karma at work to me.
Well, just keep in mind, Salman Amanat is not a true believer. She's just a grifter, like so many of them. Just playing
Probably.
on the politics,
Yeah.
like old Jussie Smollett here. We all know he's guilty. He's called out, and he's still saying, "I'm innocent. It's because I'm black."
Wait,
Yeah, okay, buddy.
Chester, you don't think there was a bunch of super racist redneck Trump supporters walking around with a noose at 2 a.m. in Chicago
No,
when it was 20 below
yeah,
zero?
no. It was
Yeah, they
No?
do
no
that
one
all the
believed
time,
that
man.
day one, dude. Yeah.
No one, I know, no one, even other like super hardcore black identitarians, like, wait a
Especially
minute.
seeing as most of your so-called manga Trumpers are some of the nicest people you'll meet.
Well, and they're
I'm
not going to be in Chicago at 2 in the morning.
No, my God, it's so stupid. But anyway, my point is, she's not a true believer. She's a grifter, right? She is, and of course, she's played that card a lot. Now, I don't know if that makes that worse or less in your our listeners' minds, but that's what she is, though, right?
Yeah.
And for me, I understand the grift. I don't like it, but I understand it. The true believers are the ones that bug me the most, really.
Didn't you
Um,
say she's had some good runs though?
I think she did. I think her original Miss Marvel, which kind of got her in the spotlight, I thought it was pretty good. I like what she
Okay.
did with it. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a hard time believing that she's a grifter if she's like legitimately trying to do good stuff. Like
I don't
I
think
can
she
understand.
was initially. I think she just got in because I think she just got on board with it. Because keep in mind, when Miss Marvel came out, the comic, this nonsense had not come to the uproarious level that it is at now. right? And I think she just got an opportunity. She wrote a good story, and the original stuff was good. It was a good, fun character, dude. It was kind of like I don't know if you guys have ever read Valiant, especially the Return of Valiant, which I was excited about, and the Faith character. Now they went and ruined that character too, but the initial Faith character was fun. She was a fan of superheroes, and that's
Have
kind of
you
what Miss
ever
Marvel is.
read Valiant? Holy cow, Chet, we're gonna have a fight.
Oh,
Um,
come on, dude. The Return of Valiant was good for a while. It was
I've
good.
got a trunk like 5 feet away from me full of the original Valiant run, including Harbinger #1, Exo Man Award #1.
Oh yeah, those are
So
good too. The original
yeah,
stuff, yeah. But they did a good job for a while. But I was just making a comparison with the Faith
no,
character
no, no,
because Miss
you're
Marvel is similar.
absolutely yeah, no, and I think the comparison is astute. But my point is that when it comes to some of these higher ups at the executive level, saying the word grifter, I don't know how applicable it is because at a certain point at their level they're running a business, and then it
Yeah,
becomes contingent on the actual like writers and artists to make the comics.
sure.
So I mean I get what you're saying, but I'm not sure how applicable it is. Right?
Well,
It's like it
I,
would be
I
like saying Satya Nadella is like a grifter when it comes to like Microsoft, but like he doesn't make the the applications and he doesn't design the
did you
products
say
and stuff.
Nelson
Right?
Mandela?
Satya Nadella.
Oh, okay. Because
He said
uh,
Nelson Mandela too.
well, because
I was like,
Nelson
I was
what?
just
Mandela
like,
is a definite grifter, 100% grifter.
Oh, you're
He's a dead one, but he was a grifter for damn sure. But no, I understand what you're saying, but I disagree. She's definitely a grifter, dude. That is her. That is, and I don't think she started that way. I really don't. But I think
okay.
she turned into it. If you go back and you look at all the stuff she said over the past few years and all the stuff she's done, she's the type that thinks that controversy and pissing people off somehow is going to make you money in the end. And she's followed that vein for quite a while. And in the end, we don't know, but maybe what she did wasn't that bad. But Disney proper is seeing that, yeah, we really need to make a change. Because, but at the same time, Bob Chapek is sitting here and jumping all on board with the "Don't Say Gay" bill, which isn't even the name of the bill, and he's getting absolutely roasted by DeSantis, as he should. So I don't know. We kind of seen like Chapek came in and wanted to kind of go back to normal for money's sake. But then all of a sudden he's on this crusade. So I don't know, but
I'll
she's
never forget
definitely a
that Bob
grifter.
Chapek is definitely on board with what we call the message. He has always
He
has
is,
been.
yeah,
That's not a question. But I do think that he has a financial incentive long before anything else. Like I think in the balance of it, pretty much all of them have the financial incentive first, but some of them have the message at a much closer rank to the financial incentive,
sure.
and will allow it to leapfrog it occasionally when necessary. I don't think Chapek's like that.
What is
I think he's much
for,
more involved with trying to make them as profitable as possible. I think that's his only own goal, because he's following probably besides Walt himself, Disney's best CEO they've ever had. Whether you like him or not, Iger was so ridiculously successful at that
He was.
job
He was.
that it's going to be really hard to follow suit. Really hard.
for my own ignorant education, what is, because I've heard you guys refer to this on occasion, what is the message or the agenda that gets referred to on occasion here?
Progressive identity politics.
Mainly, yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to get into it here. Thundero, I think you and I should have a conversation about that sometime
Well, I
because I
mean,
think
well, I mean,
Thunder
Ben, I mean,
with that.
you're not going to sit here and argue that there isn't a culture war going on in America. You're not going to argue that. Obviously not. It
Argue
is
the
going on.
definition or the source of the culture war. I'm not going to argue that there is, but who exacerbates it and who
Well, they both
elevates
sides
it.
exasperate. I mean that's clear. This side points fingers in the other side. I'm not taking a side because they're both can be quite noisy. That's
Yep.
not the point. I think what happened with Sana is she came in, and the reason I say she's a grifter is very simple. Because if you read the original stuff she did, it was good. It was fun. It was comic booky. Right, and then she got a little bit of power because they say, oh, okay, we want more diversity, so let's put her at this brown girl at a higher level and get her some authority. And it's like, okay, fine. And maybe it went to her head. I don't know. Maybe she got some advice she shouldn't listen to. I don't know what happened. But clearly when she came in, she was happy and excited to write a book, and it was good. It was fun, good comic book. And then she
Yep.
changed. So something happened. Either power went to her head, someone got in her ear, I don't know. But I mean, because you can see the difference in, say, Mags Visaggio is a good example, right? Because Mags was one of the first kind of transgenders we saw popping up in comic books, and they immediately latched on and say, "Oh, we're going to put her everywhere. We're going to show her off. This is the future. This is diversity. This is identity." Okay, fine. The problem with Mags Visaggio is he or she, however you want to take that, is a horrible writer. Absolutely horrible. Not a slick a blip of talent. And they went so far with that identity politics that they actually put her in charge of a freaking TV show that bombed. It didn't even make it its first season. Of course, because she's a horrible, horrible writer. Sana is different. Sana will say a lot of the same nonsense you get out of Visaggio. Sorry, I couldn't resist. But I stopped myself. She'll say the same nonsense, but on the back end of it, like say a Gail Simone or McKinney or some of the other ones that we talked about, she's actually talented. Sana Amina is a good writer, and she had a good idea. I think the Miss Marvel characters is a good character. They just ruined it because they decided to push all this kind of
I think she has
silly
a dumb
politics.
power. Like her powers are dumb, but other than
Well,
that, she's a good
but is
character.
Reed Richards' powers dumb
Yeah, but his
or
powers
Plastic
aren't
Man?
really his power. His power is his mind. He just happens to be super
Yeah,
stretchy.
well, fine. But
About his power is his mind.
Yeah, Reed Richards is the smartest man in Marvel Comics universe. The most intelligent being in the
he is.
universe.
That is
Reed
true.
Richards.
But you get my point that I'm trying to make, right? I didn't mind her power set. I like I said, I read the original Miss Marvel run, and I thought, oh, this is pretty good. It was fun. Something happened, but whatever. There's clearly something going on here. I don't know if she actually did something really bad or there's politics. I don't know. But there's meat on this bone because it won't go away. It
Yeah.
won't go
No,
away.
I think that where there's smoke, there's fire, and there's a lot of smoke from places where there's not normally smoke. And the silence is deafening because this has been going on for a very long time now, these rumors.
Yeah.
And for some reason they have not addressed them at all. No one has that would be in that circle. So if she is in good standing, why wouldn't she address it? Why wouldn't she be like, no, this is nonsense, everything's fine? If she's not in good standing, then it makes sense why she wouldn't address it because she might not be able to legally. They could have NDAs signed already, stuff like that. That kind of stuff happens at these levels,
Yeah.
and that could very well be what it is.
It's possible. I do want to move on to the next story, but I mean, another thing that really, I mean, because she's really promoted women in comic books and stuff, and that's not necessarily a problem. But she said something that is wrong, and it's very, very wrong. She came out and proudly on that they put out like a little lifestyle show because that's what they're trying to do with Marvel Comics, and she said that Marvel Comics isn't for boys and men anymore. And the thing that came to me was, why not? Why?
Well, why
Why
not?
can't?
And when
Yeah.
was it? When was it ever exclusively for that?
Well, even though, let's just go with the idea that it is, but and I think it is. But I mean, what's wrong with that? Women have plenty of things that are theirs, and I don't hear men complaining about it. Yeah, go ahead. What's wrong with men and women having things that are kind of exclusively theirs or prominently
No.
theirs? I don't have a problem with it. So why exactly do Marvel Comics have to not be for men and boys anymore? I don't understand that. Why can't it be a male hobby, a male outlet? What's wrong with that?
Nothing.
And that was one of the most egregious things she's seen. She said because she's done a lot of griftery things, the whole lesbian and gay agenda and all that kind of stuff. Whatever. I don't really care about that. I just wish they would make new characters instead of changing old ones. I don't.
You guys.
Well, I don't care
Yeah.
about that. But I don't understand why comics can't be for men. I don't understand why can't it be mainly for men. What's wrong with that?
Something sexism.
Well,
Something something.
I don't think that. So again, I'm playing the part of the bleeding heart liberal here, and I'm okay with that. But what you're saying is not necessarily wrong, right? I don't think that there's a problem with it. That their primary consumers are men, but I don't see, but I don't think every single comic needs to be redone. But I think there's space enough in this industry, of which there is a lot of space, to have series that are more geared toward, and we've done that before, right? That have series that appeal more to a female audience, because there's the female consumption of the space has definitely grown within, as the convention series has grown and people are getting more into cosplay.
Sure.
Anime and mangas like really expanded the consumption as well, and so per usual business standards, and this will go to Thundero's respect as a libertarian, as in the marketplace of ideas and the free market, that there's they consider this to have a not their pure market, but a portion of the market. There's a consumer base there that they're being appealed to, right? And that's fine, right? So maybe it's just poorly worded, but just saying like, hey, we're gonna have some stuff that we're gonna still have our primary series, and they're gonna do what they do. But hey, we are gonna have some stuff that kind of appeals to a more female marketplace, and that's fine.
Okay, hold that thought.
Baby.
Hold that thought. All right, let me get into the one I want to get in here. Hold a second.
What
Hold that
about
thought.
John Carter?
No, no,
Where is
no,
it?
no, 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 no.
I
Hold on. I gotta
figured that's
find
fine.
it here. Hold on a second. Here. No, no.
Oh,
The hell.
another redhead. Another redhead bit the dust.
Oh Jesus. I can't find the one I wanted. I had it connected to this. I thought I had it right next to it. All right. I'll get to it when I
Sure.
get to it. But what I
But hold
wanted,
that
to,
thought.
I'll get to it when I get to it. But I mean, but hold that thought, because
Hold
how
that
far
thought.
do we go with that? Right? How far do we go with that? And the general idea, what you just said, is fine. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. If they think they can make money selling to female clients, like with an Archie or something like that, go for it. Go for it. That's not a problem. But that's not what they're doing. Yeah. Uh,
I
uh,
think I think by and large, all over the world. Now, this isn't true. This isn't like a 100% thing, but I would say if you did a demographic breakdown of who buys comics, period, of every type all over the world, it's probably almost all genres, mostly male.
I'm not going to
I would
disagree. They're trying
I
to
would
break.
imagine that. Now, when I
That's
say comics, I mean
what
actually.
they try to appeal to new markets.
Well, I know that, but let me explain. When I say
which is
comics, I
fine.
mean the actual hand in your hand print comics. I'm not talking about necessarily web comics or anything like that. That probably has a broader audience because you can find frickin' anything as a web comic.
Right.
But when I'm talking about especially the American style comic, I think that's largely a male dominated space. I'd say
Yeah.
manga, especially like shonen, is definitely male
It's
dominated.
very male dominated. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
and things like these that are much more action oriented
Yeah.
are male
But
dominated. Now, if Marvel wants to make, a set of runs that are designed to broaden to that audience, I don't see anything wrong with that. The problem comes when they take characters that were clearly never designed for that, redesign them into something they weren't designed for originally, and then shove them out there.
yeah.
And then they pretend like they've done some great thing that we should all celebrate,
Right.
when very often it ends up being just horrible.
Right.
It's just objectively bad.
That is the issue. And with you
Yeah,
mentioning manga, actually, Japanese do this way better. There's plenty of
yeah,
comics that are oriented, girl oriented, gay oriented. The Japanese do this way better than the
they do.
Americans do, in that regard. But here's the thing. I don't disagree with you at all, Ben. Sure, if they think they can make a market, go for it. But that's not what
Yeah,
they're doing. And if you listen to what this girl has said, and you go back, not just her, others, their intent is to tear down. And they say that openly and proudly. This isn't something that's suggestive or interpretive. This is their intent. And this girl, particularly, wants to tear down male comic books. That's her
yeah,
intent. And that's the problem. If you want to do like the Japanese and to appeal to broader audiences, there's nothing at all wrong with that. That's capitalism, baby. Go for it. But that's not what's
Yeah.
happening, right?
Okay.
So let's continue. I wish I thought I put, maybe I canceled that. Oh, I'm stupid.
you're getting to a
Anyway,
couple here that I want to do. Not this one, but I'll read it. John Carter, director and writer Andrew Staten reveals his plans for a sequel. I think you're a little late, bud. How old is John Carter? That one came out
Well,
minute ago, didn't it?
it did, and it was nowhere near as bad as the critic reception it got.
No, it was
It wasn't.
great. I
It
actually
Oh, I
wasn't.
watched
thought it
it.
was a good movie. Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I watched it
I loved
recently
it.
because I'd never watched it. I was like, "What? This is not what I was expecting. This is way
No.
better than I thought it was going to be."
I think this actor could have been a better casting, but I thought it was good. And
Advertisement.
Yeah, that was a problem. You're right, Eric. But the thing is, man, John Carter has legs, dude.
Yeah,
John Carter
yeah.
has legs.
It's one of
And
the oldest stories in
Oh
Pulp
my God,
Fiction.
yeah,
Like,
it's really,
it
really
might
old.
be the progenitor of most of the stuff we were just talking about. To be
It
honest,
certainly has
the
influence.
superheroes
Yeah.
and things. Yeah,
Well,
definitely strong influence.
no, Burroughs has definitely influenced a lot of stuff that came out after it, of course.
Yeah,
But there's a lot of legs with John Carter, and not just the John Carter character. There's other characters like this one we're looking right here that could be very interesting. And I like the movie too, Eric. So I personally would love to see this. I'd love to see another John Carter. It's just it is an odd announcement, don't you think, though? Because they
yeah,
lost their lunch on this movie, dude.
big time. Yeah, I wonder if it did really well. Has done really well afterwards in like
No,
you know black
it
market sales and
actually
things.
is on the top 10 list of the biggest bombs of all time, money
That's a
wise.
shame
Yeah,
because it's not bad at all. Like, it does
no,
not deserve to be on that list. There are far worse movies that have made a lot of money that should be on that list, but aren't. I'm
yeah,
looking at you, Transformers, at all of you, everyone.
right. Now, I didn't care those movies are horrible. I didn't care much for their portrayal of Deja Thoris, but I didn't. That doesn't matter. I understand that movies aren't going to be exactly like the comic. I understand that. But this movie did do very badly. But I want to see a return to Barsoom, dude. I think it would be neat.
Yeah,
And I don't have much more to say on it. I just saw that, so I was like, yes, please,
that'd
Ben.
be cool. Be cool.
I mean, I wasn't. I watched the film. I think part of the problem was the actor had a little bit of the Gambit stink on him
Yeah.
post X-Men Origins Wolverine,
Yeah, the casting,
which,
it was a bad casting choice, yeah.
well, and not just that, it was a bad movie, right? You know, the whole like. I'm not going to get into that, but I was okay with it. I didn't think it was amazing, but I thought it was okay. I didn't think it was as bad, but the problem was it was a bloated production. Like, it cost them like, I think, nearly 300 million to make, and then again it cost them, another like 100 for advertisements, and then I think all it made was like 200 million
Yeah.
globally or something like that, a
Yeah,
little bit above that. So
it lost hundreds of millions of dollars. Yeah, it was ridiculous.
right, yeah, I definitely think that it's got some issues. Smaller, I guess, would be my suggestion. Do a film that doesn't cost 300 million to make or what have you. You tell a smaller story to
Yeah.
dip your toes into it a bit more.
But
So
to be fair, jumping into Barsoom requires a lot of CG. It is
Oh,
effect heavy. It is costly. Yeah.
Disney
yeah,
Plus. Go Disney Plus.
Yeah, now they could.
Do
Uh,
a
uh,
series.
when I saw it, Eric, I was like, yeah, sure, let's see it. I thought it was pretty cool. Because I haven't heard any rumors about this whatsoever. It's the first thing I saw on it.
No,
Just popped up,
I haven't either. Yeah.
be good. Could be
Yeah.
good.
And they could even do it. Now, talk about wanting to have some more diverse and female characters. Deja Thoris would be a great run,
Yeah.
right? She's a cool
Well,
character, man.
the other great thing about like John Carter is it's very it'd be especially now with the success of the superhero genre, like to the ridiculous levels. It's kind of proto superhero, right? John Carter is, and yeah, it's set on Mars and everything, but like I think it would do better now than it did then. I think it came out too soon. If it
Right.
came out now, I think it would do a lot better because it's
Well,
not a bad film. It really isn't.
no, although, like I said, with the actress they chose for Deja Thoris, they should have went with someone, like Egyptian,
Yeah,
or something like that. Because one of the things Burroughs had done with his original writings is at that time, and actually a little bit before that time, well, since Galileo, really, there people have been, of course, monitoring and looking at Mars for quite a while, and Mars has a lot of canals on it, and for quite a while there was this thinking in science and in popular imagination of the public that Mars had had people on it before. and with the canals of Mars. You can go back and research that if you'd like. But what that had done is it was part of the end of the 19th centuries. There was a resurgence in old things, archaic things, particularly Egyptology. And of course, anthropology itself had only been around since the 1850s, really, and had become more and more popular. The imagination of the public was grasped in it, and they even used to have a lot of these Egyptian parties where they would come together and they would dress up. And Burroughs' writing is kind of caught up on all of that, and that's why because in that kind of fantastical thinking of the time, Mars was thought that people were kind of speculating that the original Egyptian culture had come from Mars. That's where that comes from. It comes from the 19th century, not the 20th century, and that's what Burroughs had tapped into when he was doing that. So Dejah Thoris is an Egyptian princess. Right, that's what she is, and she's described that way, and she should have been that way. They should have hired an actress that had that swarthy look because that's what Deja is. And that was for anyone who's read the stuff. That was a problem. Of course, most people haven't read it, I guess. But I don't know. Cool.
Pretty old.
It is
Pretty
pretty
old
old, but it's
stuff.
good stuff.
I
But
think part of with it is though is that it's easier in novel form because of the stellar, visuals and stuff like that. But also, like the names are really difficult for cinematic viewing, right? The
yeah,
names are really kind of in depth and require, I think, a much more delicate tongue for pronunciation. And I get it; they were trying to make the name sound a lot more exotic and out there, but it's hard in cinematic form to like get
Yeah.
all those names together and make sense of it.
that's fair. That's fair.
Well, in audio format, things have to sound well, and if they just don't, like if when it comes out, it doesn't have a good sound, a good alliteration,
Yeah,
and a
yeah,
good rhythm, it's
yeah.
very hard to sell, especially in a movie.
Like Kevin.
Ugh, ugh,
But
ugh.
anyway, going back
That
to
just
those
makes me feel sick in the throat. Just
going going back to those original Burroughs books, which way back, right? Some of the art on those books were absolutely phenomenal, dude. I mean, we're talking 100 years ago, right? And those books were killer, dude. The art on them, the books were really. You should go read them if you haven't. But some of that original art was just spectacular, dude. But anyway, I'm going to move on from it. I just thought, yeah, cool, awesome. Hey, here we go. Oh yeah, this is the one I was talking about. Here it is.
DC Comics writer Andrew Wheeler claims Harry Potter author J.K. Rowling is, quote, playing with my personal safety for rhetorical clout, end
Okay.
quote.
Now,
What?
I haven't covered the J.K. Rowling thing at all here, and I've done and intentionally so, right? Because basically she's a feminist, which awesome, whatever. And she doesn't like what the transgender thing is, whatever that is, because she thinks it's taking away from women, and I can't disagree. When it comes to especially sport, I don't think that's right. I don't agree with that. But
Mhm.
this is her take, and I just didn't cover it because I didn't really care. I mean, she did a great job with her Harry Potter. They're well written. They're good books. She deserves all the money and fame she's got. I have no problem with
Yeah.
J.K. Rowling. But she is a feminist, and she's what do they call them? TERFs, I think.
Yes.
And she really doesn't like the transgenders, nudging in on the feminist women stuff. All right, fine.
Mhm.
That is not anything that has to do with my world, so I haven't covered it. However, as I said, keep in mind with the Son of Amanat, who is nowhere near as bad as what we're going to see this Andrew Wheeler here, because and once again, I think she's a grifter. I don't think she's a true believer. Here we have a true believer, because Andrew Wheeler, and I'm curious what Ben will have to say on this. His pushback against her, he just doesn't like what she has to say, and somehow she's hurting his safety. But what this guy wants to do, and I'll read it. DC Comics writer and former editor-in-chief of Comics Alliance Andrew Wheeler, known for pitching Justice League Queer, recently claimed that Harry Potter author J.K. Rowling is playing with my personal safety for rhetorical clout. Now,
So you got to
it's
breathe.
yes,
Them
thank
commas
you.
that you can take a
Right, when
breath.
that
Uh,
comma's there, yeah, take a breath.
no, I shall not, Eric. But here's the thing: does anybody at all want Justice League Queer? All right, and
Nobody
you could
did.
nobody does, and you could say, all right, well, we can have this comic or that comic, and that's fine. I have no problem with gay characters whatsoever. You go ahead, make a good story,
Uh,
please. But here, this
Yes.
it goes further. Now, this is important. While the editor-in-chief at Comics Alliance, Wheeler, made clear his goals were to radically alter the comic book world. Radically alter? How? He wrote, "We need to get from someone to enough. From some to enough. And really, we'll know we've achieved success when Captain America can have a boyfriend and Wonder Woman can have a girlfriend. For queer representation in superhero comics, that's what success looks like." So this dude, he wants to radically alter the comic book world. Why does Captain America have to be gay? Why does Wonder Woman have to be gay? Why? I mean, if you make new characters that are, go for it. But that's not what we have here. Here we have a good example with Mr. Wheeler of a person who has an actual agenda,
Yeah,
right? This is the message that we're talking about, Ben.
the
This is
message.
an agenda. Now, do you think that this agenda of his is right?
Are you asking
Uh,
me or Ben?
I'm Ben, of
yeah.
course. Yeah.
Oh,
So, do I think it's right?
Hmm.
I don't think it's wrong. You're asking a question with a binary answer, and I think
Okay,
it's much more
let
complicated
let
than that.
me let me let me knock off the edges for you then.
Sure.
Do you think it's okay to tear down comic books and make it all gay because somehow that is going to help gay men in the world?
So, as somebody who has, for example, here in my D&D group, I have a trans player and I have a gay player, and I have a gay player who is playing in my comic book world for the DC Comics, right? So when I was running the game, and I told you it was set in the 1994, right?
Yeah,
Him and I have a conversation. He was like, "Hey, what are things going to be like for a gay character in that time? Because the 90s weren't great for the gays,
well, the
right?
whole
There were,
AIDS thing. Yeah,
well, not just that. There was a lot of gay panic and a lot of gay fear, especially around gay men. And my stance to him was like, "Hey, you know what? In a world that's full of like alien invasions and gods trying to destroy us, I think we would have gotten over the gay fear stuff and would have been okay with gays being around." And he's like, "All
that's
right,
true.
thank you. That makes a lot of sense." So that's stance number one. Stance number two, I don't think they want to make every character gay. I
This
think
guy does.
you're
This guy
I
does. This guy does.
he says that he wants to make it okay for Captain America to have a boyfriend, not that he's going to have one, but that we don't have a weird like cultural like knee jerk at the idea of it,
That's
right?
not what he's saying, Ben. I understand what you're saying. I get
Captain
it,
America
and I
can
don't.
have a boyfriend, not does have a boyfriend,
No,
right?
that is not what he's saying. Now, I
It's
don't
not
have a problem with what you're saying. I don't think anyone does. We have no trouble with different characters. That's not the issue. The problem is that people like this want to tear something down for their own purposes. He wants to radically alter the comic book world. That is what he is saying. That is what he wants. And there are many people like him. There are also plenty of other people who are of the gay persuasion that aren't like that. I have gay friends too. I imagine everybody here listening has gay friends, right? And they don't like this shit either, dude. They don't like it because it's
Hey, you're
bringing.
my gay friend, Chester.
That's right. You tell them, Eric. But they don't like the exposure being put on top of them like that because that's not how they think. I understand what you're saying, Ben, and I support it because I agree. But this guy doesn't agree with you. He doesn't.
I think we're reading like deeper in this
No,
than what
because
was intended.
I know who he is, dude. And I've
That's
seen
fine.
many, many responses from him in the past. This is a
That's fine.
hater, a toxic hater.
it looks and smells, looks and sounds like what the left would call a dog whistle. You know how they have their terms for like racists supposedly use
You
dog
like dog
whistles to
whistles because
communicate.
only dogs could hear it.
I no, that's what I agree with you. I'm just
Okay.
saying, like from
Just
their
make sure
point of
I'm
view,
clear.
if I was going to be them and I was looking at it from their point of view, I would say that that is a dog whistle for his agenda. Now, personally, I don't think that way because I don't try to read people's minds. But this gentleman has said other things. I've seen
Oh
them
my
where
God,
I think
dude. He's
Chester's
bad.
probably very correct.
Okay.
I actually don't want it to be okay for Steve Rogers to have a boyfriend. I don't think that's right. Steve Rogers is a character that
Yeah, he's already
exists.
established. Yeah.
He's established. His sexuality and his worldview is who he is, and I don't think you should play with that too much, personally. I think if you want to make a character that becomes Captain America that's gay, okay, make that character. But you shouldn't change someone established. And the reason why you shouldn't is because if it's not okay to do it the other way, to straighten up a character, straight wash a character, take away their homosexuality or whatever, their queerness, whatever you want to call it, then it's not okay to do it either way. You have to have consistency.
Yeah.
And
No,
if sexuality is so important, then changing it, period, should be wrong. You shouldn't do that from the original intention.
Well, give me a second here. Right. So
Yep.
I understand the basis of what you're saying, but the reality of it is starkly different. And so I'll give you a good example. Wonder Woman, right, comes from an island full of Amazonian women, of which they're all man-haters. Of all the DC characters who are likely to be gay, it would probably be Wonder Woman.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I think we all assumed she was.
Yeah, okay. So, but, so I'm running, the DC Adventures.
I'd be
right?
okay with a lesbian Wonder Woman. That'd be hot.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, I kind of figured she was bisexual. I always figured she was.
But that's the crux of the problem, is that
Easy.
we're much more okay with the lesbian characters than we are with the gay male characters. That we, especially when it comes. Well, yeah.
No, in reality, though, I see where you're getting at, and I don't disagree with you, to be honest with you.
Okay.
But I would say that if you're going to create, if you create a character today, right, and you create them with a very specific sexuality in mind, you create them a very specific look, a very specific origin, that should be respected in the future, because whoever's working on it later didn't create that. That's not theirs to just fuck around with however they please.
Right.
I don't think that's right. I think you should have more respect for what you're working on, and the people who love that thing, their investment to try and be faithful to it. Now, that doesn't mean you can't make changes. You can make some changes, but if sexuality is a fundamental identity of a person, it's part of your identity, changing it is changing that character irrevocably. That's a massive change.
No, okay, so you're assuming that the sexuality is a fundamental aspect of their identity, or for you it is a fundamental aspect.
No,
of
yes.
for them
No. Yeah, I'll take that. For me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's take a look at the Superman example for a second. Okay.
Yeah.
Now if you took and made Superman gay, it would create actual war on the planet. They didn't do that. What they did was they made his son gay. Now I know it upset a lot of people, and it has failed. But I personally was like, okay, fine. Now if they tried to make Superman gay, I'm like, fuck you, right? But taking and making his son gay, making him the prominent new Superman in the headlines, and put Superman in the background, which Thunder and I agree would be a cooler thing to do, that's not a problem. You've created a new character. You're doing new things with him. Rock on. All right, you do you. If it's successful, good for you. That's not the problem. Well, what we're seeing with guys like Wheeler here, and there are many of them, not all of them, not even near all of them, but these kinds of people. Because he's not a grifter, he's a true believer. And this is what I have problems with, right? Because this guy wants to make everything gay because the whole world needs to be gay for him to be right. And that is wrong. We should be able to be what we want to be and be free. That's the problem with this whole damn culture war that's going on. You have one side that, I'm not talking about an extremist, right? But you have one side that's saying, yeah, man, do you. Right? And the other side saying, no, we are not going to accept tolerance. We want your acceptance. No, we want your involvement. Now, and they're going to extremes that if you don't want to have sex with a trans guy or trans girl, whatever they call it, then you're wrong. This is the problem. These kind of people are the problem, right? Not people like Gail Simone and Sana Amanat who are just grifting and trying to, get more attention and get more, make more money. These people are the problem. Because he wants to do that, and it's not right. It's not right.
So hold on. Okay, so let me address some of the points. I'm not going to defend Andrew Wheeler because I don't know him that well or his
jackass.
stuff. Right? That's fine. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. I don't know. Just based off of what you've shown me so far, I'm not totally convinced yet. But maybe there's stuff that I'm missing, so I'll do more research on it. Right? From my perspective, right. When I was prepping for my DC Adventures game, I got my Heroes and Villains Volume 1 and Volume 2, right? Part of the problem with that is that it's got hundreds of characters, right? Of which I think in the total of them, one's John Constantine's officially bisexual from historical perspective, right?
Yeah,
So,
more recently, but whatever. Yeah, I get you. Yeah.
but so my point being is that you guys have created what is essentially a Kobayashi Maru for this scenario. That if they just introduced a bunch of gay characters, which it sounds like they're doing in this, right? Brand new gay characters,
Yep.
that becomes the agenda. Or
No.
if they, no, hold on, give me a second, because I let you guys ramble for a long time.
Uh-huh.
So if they introduce a bunch of new characters that are gay or homosexual, that becomes quote unquote the agenda. Or if they reimagine certain characters as being, homosexual, that then becomes the agenda. So it
Right.
feels
No.
like
Yes. Second one,
no.
right.
Well, okay, you're okay with that. I think other people are not as okay with
Here's
like
when it's. I'll tell you the difference. I'll tell you where the delineation is. If you're making a book, like say, what's her name? The Batwoman who's gay. What's her name? I can't remember her name.
Batwoman. Yeah. Who cared? No one cares about gay
If you're
Batwoman.
making
Nobody.
yes, if you're making that
She's
book
a cool
and
character.
that's just part of who she is, cool. When you come out and you put this big like a billboard of we're gonna make Justice League queer or we're gonna do these things, you bring them out during quote unquote Gay Pride Month and you
I
have
have no
all
problem with
this
that.
mass marketing campaign to show how great your company is and how much you've evolved or whatever that means. That's when it becomes a far less of, hey, I just have this cool character idea, let's make it, and it becomes nothing more than an agenda
I
to
see.
try and promote something either for money
Well.
or for clout or for both. And
Yeah.
that's when it, to me, is an issue because it's basically tokenization
Well,
is
okay,
what
it
you're
is
doing.
politics. I get what you're
Yeah,
saying. I personally don't care. If they want to make Justice League queer and they want to come out, especially in Gay Pride Month, go for it. I have no problem with that whatsoever. That's not the issue for me. But I get your
yeah.
point.
I just don't like and there's studies on this going back to like 2007, probably even further, but that's the one I know of that's on my old hard drive I could probably pull up, where they literally have done marketing research on the groups of people, the types of people who are more likely to be what the industry calls, or all industries now call whales. And those people are typically progressives. People on the left, not the super like anarchist far left, but like right on the like the Kamala Harris fans type left, or the AOC fans type left. That kind of spectrum.
What,
neolib.
idiots?
Yeah. So like neo-lib progressives, I call them filth basically. Those sorts of people tend to be more capable of being whales, whereas a conservative person, by their very nature, usually is not. They're not going to go spend a ton of money on certain forms of entertainment product, right? They're just not going to do that, like comic books or whatever. So one of the reasons why you've seen this massive shift in marketing to leftist politics and away from just more centrist positions like American positions is because of these studies that came out about 15, 20 years ago, showing that those people are far more likely to spend up to 1,000 times more than your average American consumer because they'll basically take the bait. Is basically how to work, is the nicest way to put it. And I don't think that's wrong. When all of these major, at least the research existing, I don't know if the premise is correct, but I think that is what they're going off of and why you see so many of these companies just on board. Hook all the way in, deep, ankle deep in it, like they're on board with what we call the message. And really all it comes across to me as is just corporate PR bullshit.
I still
Because they
don't
don't actually believe it. Because if they did believe it, they'd believe it all over the world, like in China and the Middle East and places. And they don't. They don't promote that stuff there because they know it'll happen to them. They'll either get shut down, literally, by the government for doing it, or the people will outright reject it so hard that they might actually be threatened with violence against their own personal safety.
Right, which I
So,
would agree is wrong.
yeah, I'm not saying that people should be doing that kind of stuff. I'm just saying that's why they don't do it. They know that culture over there will not be tolerant, quote unquote, of it at any level.
No.
So they don't actually really believe it. It's a safe bet. They can make a safe little, what we call virtue signal, and get the clout on Twitter and places, and then maybe hook them a couple whales who will spend exorbitant amounts of money chasing them down because yay they agree with me or whatever, right? Yay they have great representation. But then what they end up doing is alienating a big part of the market who doesn't want to be preached to. period. Not in that
Yeah,
manner. They
that
don't
is
want
true.
to feel like they're walking into like some kind of college discourse on critical race theory or pick one of the buzzwords, right? They don't want that. Not because they necessarily even disagree with the message. They just don't want the message all the time. Like a lot of Christians, right? They don't want to go to church every day. You see what I mean? There's a time and a place. And there's a meme on the internet of go away brand or silence brand. And what that is when they're using, cult or political or cultural movements or times to promote their stuff. And I got a great example I just saw today. It made me laugh. The reason why I was late to the show, my wife and I were shopping, buying her some spring dresses and some new. We were going to buy her new
Aw.
shoes, but she couldn't find any. But she was looking at socks, and there's a brand of socks out there with the straight up communist black power fist on them, talking about footwear for equality, and I just lost my mind with laughter because holy shit, the pandering! Can you pander harder, please? I love it. I personally
Opium.
love it because it's just pure raw capitalism at work, and I love to watch it. But
That's
I
ironic.
just don't like it when it's so obviously slanted one direction, and then when you say you don't like it, they turn around and call you a name. You're some kind of phobe or ist or bigot. No, maybe I just don't want to be preached to all the time. Can that just be the answer? Why does it have to be something so nefarious?
Um. So, am I okay to go on my own ramble now?
Yes.
You
Go.
good? All right.
Fire off.
So again, as the bleeding heart liberal here, you're allowed to not like this stuff or read this stuff, right? But everyone has personal preferences when it comes to the content they consume, right? And I'm super guilty of that as well. Like pick and choose like what I consume. The problem becomes it's the egregious fighting against the quote unquote message, which I'm still not clear what that message is, right? Because for me, the quote unquote message is it just being okay for people of different sexual orientations or different genders to exist, right?
That's not the message.
No.
Okay, but that's the message I'm getting. So I'm not getting the same message that you guys are getting, right? And I'm not understanding what you think the message is, right?
Well, we know what the message is. I know what you're saying, and I know what you're going to say, and I agree with you. The problem is people like Andrew Wheeler don't agree with you, Ben. They don't.
Yeah.
And if
You're
you've noticed
imperialist.
what we're saying, we don't. We agree with you too. There's no problem. You do whatever you want to do, man. You go for it, right? What we're saying that the difference is with people like Andrew Wheeler, and there's a whole bunch of them, dude, that screech and whine on Twitter and other places all day long, which I don't care because I'm not on Twitter. But what they believe, and this is the message, they believe that you must not only agree with them, you must follow suit. This is the problem. It's one thing for all of us to sit here and say, "Yeah, man, you do you. You're free. Please do that." That's what freedom's all about, and that's what everybody here agrees with, right? What they're saying is, "No, you're not right unless you're gay." Or whatever the topic is. There's so many of them. We're just happen to be talking about
So
gays here.
you're saying that the message is they want everyone to be gay or transgendered.
And exactly like them. That's the message we're talking about. We're not talking about what you're talking about because we agree with you, dude. We agree. Most humans do,
Or
Um,
they don't necessarily care so much if you have the same sexuality. What they do want though is they want your submission's the best word, but that's a little radical.
Submission
But
is
that's
no,
basically
that's what
what
they
it is.
want. That's exactly what they
They
want.
want
And
you
that
to say their words out of your mouth.
Right.
That's what they want.
And this is what's pissing people off, dude. It's not because we're not talking about whatever the radical left, right is, whatever that is. We're not talking about that, especially seeing as the alt right was created by a gay man. But anyway, but whatever the radical right might think, the whatever the hateful type of people, we're not talking about that. The average people
There's like
sitting in the middle,
10,000 of them.
Yeah, well, yeah, but whatever. They're not. They're not what we're talking about. We're talking about the majority of people. They're getting frustrated because they're constantly being attacked and told, "You've got to think this way. You've got to do this way. We're gonna force you. As a matter of fact, we're gonna force it on your kids, and we're gonna, if you don't like it, we're gonna take your kids away." This is what's going on, and we're starting to get closer and closer to the politicians actually trying to enforce it, legislatively, dude. And this is what is pissing people off. It has nothing to do with it. And understand, most humans today, especially in the West, we sit in a classical liberal place. That's what we are.
I
This
don't.
is the message, dude. And people like Andrew Wheeler is a perfect example of the message. And we've completely not even talked about J.K. Rowling because she's a liberal, right? And is what she's asking for, right? I mean, look what we got to the point. We've actually legislated the idea that men can perform in women's sports. We've legislated that. How ridiculously it is. And I don't care who you are. I don't care what argument you want to make. You're going to lose the argument because DNA is not going to lie. If you take anybody at an athletic peak or even in an athletic competitive state, men are always going to beat women, and that's why we created women's sports to start with. This is part of it, and it's creeping ever further. And this is why people are getting so mad, especially with this critical race theory stuff and trying to tell your kids. I mean, they've gotten to we're stuck on the gay thing, but it's much broader than that. They're sitting there and they're teaching white kids that you are born with original sin. How dare you? And you need to be broken down and understand that you need to spend the rest of your life serving the other people who aren't as evil and horrible as you are because you were born white. That's the
Right.
shit we got going on right now. And I don't
Okay.
understand how anybody can defend that because
No, no,
it's
no, no.
fucking evil.
Yeah.
So
Chester's angry. I like it.
yeah. Um.
Fired him up.
Yeah. So I get what you're saying, right? And there's a lot to unpack in that rant. Hold on. You were gonna say something, Thorndaro?
No, I was just laughing because I agree with you. Yeah, he went off. I like it. I like
Yeah.
fired up Chester. I like him.
So, like, this all becomes a perception thing, right? So, for instance, I live in Texas, where you talk about taking kids away. Look, they're gonna arrest families for having kids go through transgendered, therapy and stuff like that, right?
Because it's illegal.
So, what do you mean it's illegal?
It's illegal. You can't. There's an age restriction on doing that, and we also know that the science says you shouldn't do that. Scientists, doctors, actual doctors, they say you shouldn't do that until the kid is fully developed
Most
because you'll
trans
cause
people say
trouble.
that. From the polls I've seen, most trans people don't agree with doing it to
No, they don't.
children.
But anyway, go ahead, Ben.
Sorry, we interrupted you. Go ahead.
Right. But okay, so first of all, that kind of erodes the concept of like small government, right? Because now we're getting like way into people's lives,
Yeah.
and you could make the same argument against like circumcision and stuff like that, right? Because
I
every
do.
year. Okay, no, and I agree with you, right? But we still have people perform circumcisions, and we still have a certain number of babies die every year as a result, right? So my point being is that it seems to be a disproportionate and egregious targeting of a very, very, very small sample set of individuals for that purpose, right? And so and that's, again, I agree with you. That's part of like the culture war. Like, it's going to be like knocked down in court. It's not going to go anywhere. It's purely just to rile up like the right base and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
As far as the critical race theory, I'm going to agree with you to a point, right? Critical race theory is really a collegiate level thing, talking about the embeddedness of certain historical racial problems and how they've worked their way into systems that have lasted as long as they have, right? It's a high legal theory and stuff like that. What the stuff that you're talking about, that's not actually like critical race theory. That's new race theory. And I don't agree with some of that stuff, like with the teaching like original sin for white people. However, again, like there's a knee-jerk reaction going on here because there's also the opposite problem where, under the guise of critical race theory, they're wanting to stop teaching history, right? Stuff about slavery, the Confederate States, all the stuff with like that, right? And so it's the true culture war in that regards. In that I'll agree with your stance, but I think the larger problem is that under the guise of critical race theory or a knee-jerk reaction to it, they're doing harm from a historical perspective. They don't want to teach history anymore. And a lot of the books they took out of like schools and stuff like that, like they did here in Texas, were stuff that taught about like the Civil War and taught about slavery and stuff like that, saying, well, we can't have critical race theory. Well, the stuff that you're
Well,
talking about.
let's be fair. They haven't taught the truth about the Civil War in 150 years. Like we've had a full-on Union perspective for a very long time about that war.
That's true. But I get
And
his point, though. I get his point.
no, I agree with you. I think the truth of the matter is we should, it should be as objective as you possibly can make it. Now, obviously, there's going to be bias and subjectivity because people are people. But you can teach all of that stuff without ever pointing a finger at anybody today. Because even if somebody directly benefit from it, they didn't choose to. It's not their fault that they were born into a family that was historically, slave owners or something like that. They didn't, they didn't walk up when God was handing out lives and be like, I want to be that guy. Let me be that guy. That's not how that went. So I think it's wrong to blame or even imply blame or guilt or shame on anybody for the sins of their fathers or their forefathers. I don't think that's correct, and I don't think anyone should be complicit in that or should be promoting that. And there are people absolutely promoting that. No,
I said I didn't disagree with that. I completely.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. I'm not saying you didn't. But I think that we have to start teaching honest history. I agree with that statement. But the problem is the left's version of honest history isn't honest either, because it definitely does have the slant of Confederacy evil. We need to literally they're ripping down Confederate monuments everywhere, whether you agree with that or not. They haven't been put back up, most of them, anywhere. Some of them are just lounging in dumps.
Yeah, no.
And it's like, okay, that's wrong. Like, we should keep this stuff for if no other reason, just so we can look back and be like, history's ugly. Let's not do that again.
Yeah, and it's the lies that really upset me. But Eric, could you please calm the bugbear down?
Dude, I'm just sitting here listening, drawing, trying to finish my comic book. You guys are all up in it. At least, hey, this is better than insurance talk. I'll tell you what. I got so much work done last week listening to the show.
You got me a lot of shit last week, you two, talking about fucking health insurance. But to be fair, it's not a subject I know much about, so I do like learning. But I am going to move
fairness,
on.
I haven't studied it in a long time, so I probably misstated some things.
That's right.
Because it hasn't really
been in the country in so long. He thought we still had a corner drugstore.
I did. Yeah. I did.
I do actually in my city. I do. There's still some here.
Really? I haven't seen one of those in decades.
Yeah,
so small. I think one's name's Ryan's Pharmacy.
But I do like learning and adding to the stuff because, I think it's important that, if you know something about something, go ahead and speak on it. But otherwise, you should be educating yourself. So I had no trouble with that conversation. I thought it was interesting. I am going to move on, though.
Later, Thundero and I came to an agreement late after the show. Because we both did a little research, and I found out that like the thing that he was complaining about with like the limitation of doctors that had ended like 20 or 30 years ago. But I also found out that they're the biggest, like the AMA is like the biggest supporter against like single payer health insurance. So now I'm on his side and wanting to get rid of them. So we came to an agreement. We came to
we both have the same. We have different reasons, but we have the same goal, and that's how you beat these people. That's how we win.
How is it that I'm the fire breather? What's on with that, dude?
Yes, they have to really cross a line for me before I'll get fired, like genuinely fired. Usually I'm just playing around, having fun, but actually pissed off at this stuff. And the reason why is because they want me to get pissed off at it.
Yeah, no.
And I'm not going to give people who I consider my enemy the gratification over my emotions. I'm not going to do that.
No. You consider me your enemy?
No, I don't consider you. Actually, if you watched yesterday's show, I praised you for a good 15 minutes.
You were nice.
Yeah, you did. I did hear that.
But I understand that, and of course you're right. But I just the constant stream of lies, and I don't really care what angle the lies are coming at me from. I'm just sick of it. And this, we've seen it for years and years, for our whole life, really. But it is getting bad because there is a culture war going on. But the apex of this is actually right now with the Ukraine war. That's really
Yeah.
what it's the absolute lies left and right. It's just fed right into the same narrative that's been going on for years. But anyway, let's move on here. But the thing
Let's do it.
is, I respect Warlings. I don't necessarily agree with her opinions. But Andrew Wheeler is an absolute cancer. Anyway, moving on.
Rumor: Anna Taylor-Joy in talks to become Harley Quinn in the Batman universe.
All right. Now,
Interesting.
um, I understand why they're doing this. They got a big hit on their hands with the Batman. That's awesome. And so they're going to do more. Awesome. They want to bring her in to be the new Harley Quinn. Um, and I understand why, because it's a separate, different thing. It's not what they've been doing with it. Although I'm kind of curious as to what you guys think of their choice. Now, this actress here, Anna Taylor Joy, she's a pretty solid actress, actually. She's not bad at all.
Who is she? I don't know who she is.
She's the girl from that chess series they did where she was going
Girl that
against.
played Magic in the New Mutants movie?
Yeah, that girl, yeah.
I mean, she's a good actress, but look wise,
Well, that's my thing. That's what I'm asking, and I'm curious of your opinion because I think she's not a bad actress. She's young and she has room to grow. Awesome. But I don't think she's a bad choice for any character really. But I'm more curious as the visual choice because here with Margot Robbie, she's not necessarily the greatest actress ever, but I think she can hold her own. But she's freaking perfect for Harley Quinn. She's perfect. Perfect casting in that regard, and she did a great job with it. And you guys know I hate Harley Quinn. She's a
Yes.
psychiatrist, not a combat, black ops fighter. Come on. Anyway, but she's a perfect choice. I thought, great, good job. Is this Harley Quinn? I don't know.
She
I don't
has some
know.
cheekbones on her. Whoa.
She's wall-eyed and weird-looking, which I get. Hollywood likes to find weird-looking people and do stuff with them. So that's not a problem at all. I don't have a problem with this actress. Like I said, I think she's a pretty good actress. That chess thing she did, she was pretty good. It was a rip-off of Bobby Fischer, but whatever. But is
Searching for
this,
Bobby Fischer?
huh?
Searching for Bobby Fischer?
Well,
Movie Searching for Bobby Fischer.
I was just talking about the actual dude, Bobby Fischer.
Okay.
But whatever. I thought she did a good job. But is this Harley Quinn though?
You know what? If they're actually considering her, it's the same people, which from what I understand it is. I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt because I didn't think Zoe Kravitz would be a good Catwoman, and she was very good. I did think Pattinson would be a good Batman. I was one of the only ones who did, and I think he was very good.
I said he was a good actor.
He is a good actor. There was very few, aside from Alfred, Andy Serkis as Alfred, I think all the casting was fine. There was no problems with it at all. Some of it was even surprisingly good, like Zoe Kravitz. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt on it. I'm just so tired of Harley Quinn, though. I don't want to see more Harley Quinn.
I can't stand the character.
Very over that character, and they haven't done anything interesting with her in, oh my god, I don't know, probably since they created her.
Yeah,
for crying
back
out
in the
loud.
animated series. But that's not what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about here is we have an actress who's capable. All right, we have a director who I don't really worship at the altar of Jar Jar Abrams, but he's a solid director, solid actress. Do you think she could pull it off? And are they going with a very different type of Harley Quinn? Because let's be fair, Harley Quinn is popular because she's sexy.
Yeah.
That's why
Mhm.
Harley
Yeah.
Quinn, and that's fine. There's characters that are popular because they're sexy or handsome, men too, and there's some that are because they're interesting and have good stories. But they've been trying to change Harley Quinn's character for quite some time in the comic books, and I just can't get beyond the fact that
I
she's just a
wouldn't mind
psychiatrist. But
the psychiatrist Harley Quinn, the psychotic,
yeah,
the one who screws with your mind,
but what do you think of the
instead of
look
being
of
a
this girl,
combat.
though? Do you think she's Harley
If
Quinn?
it depends, like they can do a lot. Like look what they did with Colin Farrell as the Penguin.
That's true. Yeah.
You would not. My buddy actually, who I went and saw it with, the best man at my wedding, he texted me the other day and he goes, "Wait, that was Colin Farrell?" He had no idea. Like 3 days later. He found out. He had no idea that was him. Yeah, that was him. They did that good of a job. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to let them work because they put out, in my opinion, one of the best Batman movies ever made. And when I say that, it's not one of the best movies about Batman. It's one of the best Batman movies, meaning the whole tone, the tenor, the way Batman moves around and acts, by and large, that's what I want out of Batman right there. They killed that part of it. So
Yeah.
I'll let them work. I'll let them do their job.
What do you think about this choice for Harley Quinn there, Ben? Did we lose Ben?
He's muted.
He's muted. He's muted himself.
He may not know he's muted.
What do you think, Eric? You have an opinion on this?
First thought, no. But I looked up some other pictures. She could probably pull it off. I see some really pale pictures of her out there. With a little makeup and stuff to hide those cheekbones.
Well, they might actually play
blend
into that, though.
Yeah.
They could go with a Joker smile type of thing with her,
If they do start with her story, instead of just throwing her in there as the crazy bitch, just her out as the doctor and work up to that.
Right.
Might work out, yeah.
Which I'm not going to spoil it, but they easily could. Let's put it that way. That could easily be what happens here.
Well, the origin story of Harley Quinn's good.
Yes,
it is good. But I don't know. I guess Ben is getting a grilled cheese sandwich. But
why grilled
cheese?
Because, but I don't know what
she's just hungry.
She is super wall-eyed, though. She's super wall-eyed. But I don't know because she, like I said, she's a solid actress, though.
She's always had a funny look about her. Anything I've ever seen her.
She does. And
maybe they want that intentionally to kind of be off-putting.
Right, and it does seem with the new Batman they are going with odd.
Yes,
and that's
there's
fine.
much more oddities, which is good. Yeah, I like that actually. Yeah. It's refreshing. It's refreshing.
Has Ben returned from his sandwiches yet?
Because Ben did see it. He said. He said last night.
I want his opinion. Eric, did you see the Batman?
I have not seen it yet.
Neither have I.
I would recommend it.
But I haven't seen the Spider-Man either.
You need to see that. If you're a Spider-Man fan,
it's just not available.
Need to see that movie.
It's just not
available. It is.
I'm gonna pirate it and send it to your ass.
Do you want me to send it to
you? Sure, I guess. I haven't been able to find a good Blu-ray version of it. They're all like rips and cams, and I hate watching that shit.
Isn't it out yet? It's got to be getting close to being like.
It comes out in like the next 2 weeks or something. But
man, they really let that one ride.
I have a Blu-ray copy.
Oh well, but I will watch it when it becomes available. I'm sure. But I guess we're not getting Ben in for the opinion. Oh well. This was more lighthearted. Let's continue though. This one's for Booster, and I'm going to let Thundaro not only read it, I'm going to let him talk and pontificate about it. I'll be back in a minute.
Legends of Tomorrow finale reveals Donald Faison as Booster Gold. I like Donald Faison.
Wait, is that actually. Turk from?
That's Turk. Yeah, Turk's great. Okay. I love me some Turk. Turk's hilarious. But as Booster, I don't know about that. I haven't seen it, and maybe he pulled it off, but I don't know about that. Because isn't one of the reasons he's called Booster Gold because he has like golden hair? Isn't that kind of? Yeah. He wears gold armor too, but it was his hair that really put him on the map there with that. So that's kind of weird. But
I haven't watched that show since it's.
Oh man, I think I've seen like 2 episodes of it, and I was like, I'm good. This is not good. This is not good entertainment for me. Thank you.
Now, some people say it's the only good one still on CW.
I don't think any of them are good on CW. To be honest. The Flash had a good run. So did Arrow for a few seasons there, and then it just.
They take a nosedive. Boom.
Oh my gosh! Right over a cliff. The Flash became so formulaic that my wife and I, what we would do is we wait till it came out on like Netflix or whatever and binge it. And when you watch it like that, it's a formula. Every show it kind of is, but it's so obvious in that show to the point where we could literally call what would happen next insofar as like somebody would get upset and they'd storm off down the hall and somebody'd go after them. Every show it happened at least twice. The exact same scene, just with different characters. And I was like, oh my gosh, man, you gotta make that less obvious. This is ridiculous.
And most of the
But
time it was Joe.
yes. What was that?
It's the CW formula, right? This is
Yeah.
between all their shows like Wolf, what was it, Teen Wolf or Archie or any of that stuff. It's just the CW format. They tend to do this.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I do like Donald Faison. I think he's funny. I think he's a good actor, and he seems like a good man from what I've seen of him outside of his roles. So I don't hate him getting work. I just don't know about him as Booster Gold. That's a little weird
What has
to
he
me.
done before? This guy, I don't know him at all.
Have you ever seen the
Oh.
show Scrubs?
Nope.
Well,
Scrubs
he's
is
a
so good. You need to watch it.
co-star in that. Yeah, you'd actually probably like Scrubs. It's pretty funny. It's old though. It's like 20. It's not like boy. You want to feel old? Scrubs came out like 20 years ago. Holy!
Chester would love Dr. Cox.
He would love
Yes.
Dr. Cox. Chester is Dr. Cox.
That's probably true. Yeah. I put this up here mainly because Booster's a big fan of it, and so he's getting as far as I know, this is the first live action representation of Booster. We've seen Booster Gold in many other animated media and stuff, and he's a fun character.
Wasn't he in Smallville? I thought he was in
He was
I
in
Smallville.
think he
Smallville.
might have
Yeah.
been, yeah.
Maybe he
Yeah,
was.
this
Okay.
is yeah.
So this is like the second one, but
Second
still,
one.
it's a weird. It's just a weird casting in general. Like he does have kind of that goofy charisma that you would want for a Booster Gold, I guess. But I don't know. It would take a lot to sell me on it with him, to be honest. It would take a lot.
And this is a finale thing, so it's just kind of like throwing in a cameo is what they're doing here.
Yeah.
It's not a main thing. Like I said, I just put it up here because one of our friends really loves Booster Gold, and I don't know who this guy is at all. It's weird because it doesn't look anything like Booster Gold, and I'm not just talking about the racial difference. I'm talking about the whole getup. But like I said, this must be a comedy show. This Legends of Tomorrow. I watched half an episode and I almost died, so I haven't looked at it again.
I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, it's really bad. But
It's
I
the
don't
worst.
know.
It's not only CW acting. It's like below. It's like the lowest tier CW acting. It's It's a slog.
That's pretty bad.
It's a slog.
That's pretty
Yeah.
bad. But cool. So this guy's got himself some work. Awesome. Not much more to say with it. Now, this is a character, I'm sure it would upset some people who are big Booster Gold fans, but this is another kind of side background character that you could do some things with, right? If you really wanted to. Whatever. Like I said, I really put this in here for James.
Old Boosty boy, my Boosty boy.
Yeah.
James. It's
Yeah.
James.
Yeah,
That's his
Booster,
real name.
Booster.
He's very open about that. He didn't dox him. Don't worry.
No, I didn't dox him. Yeah.
Oh, he's okay.
Yeah. He's a New Zealand boy who loves wombats. So
Yeah.
But
And
anyway,
Booster
let's move on here. Is Ben back?
He is.
Yeah,
He
I'm here.
returned.
Oh, you're here.
Yeah.
So I'm curious as to what you think of this girl versus Margot playing being the new Harley Quinn. What do you think about that?
I mean, I'll wait till I see like what her
Sure.
actual performance is. So I've learned to avoid this game since Heath Ledger. I was a huge
True.
anti-Heath Ledger guy when they first announced him, and I went on several rants like he can't possibly be good as Jack Nicholson, a beach bum from Australia. What are you talking about? And then he put in an iconic performance, right?
More than iconic, dude. That was one of the best acting moments in history. It was amazing.
Totally. Right?
Yeah.
So I've been down this road before. I've been that guy like railing against a casting choice, but I've learned to say, let's wait to see what the performance is like.
Yep. No, I agree. And she's a good actress, so it could be really good. I just thought it was an odd choice for a look of Harley Quinn. You're right. She should be given a chance. But you remember back when the first Iron Man movie came out, in my opinion, on Robert Downey Jr. playing it. Yeah, I was wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, everybody hated Keaton being cast as Batman all those years ago too.
And he wasn't bad, yeah. But Robert Downey Jr. became the embodiment of Iron Man, though. And I was like, I don't know about that dude playing Iron Man. I was against it. I mean, Ben, remember we had conversations about it.
Yeah.
and you know, I don't think I've ever been more wrong in my life, because my God, dude, he freaking rocked that. But anyway, we'll see. Like I said, it looks like they're going for an actual actress, so that's not a bad thing, right?
I
And I
do have
do.
to ask now that Ben's back and we're talking about the Batverse, is this is supposed to be that the new Batman's Harley Quinn? You saw it. What did you think of it? Without
I thought
spoilers.
I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
You know, I was always of the opinion that the Batman couldn't get any more grimdark than the Nolan universe, and God, I was wrong.
Yeah.
Uh, Boy, I was so utterly wrong on that. And it's one of the things that watching it actually made me realize a few things that I didn't like about the Nolan universe that I never realized I didn't like. One, it reintroduced style. Like I realized that Nolan's Batmans were always like about this perspective of trying to be as realistic as possible with just having Batman in it. And Reeve like reintroduced like a style to Gotham, a style
Yep.
to like the Wayne Manor, stuff like that. And I was like, oh God, we actually have like comic book style in the movie again, and it felt refreshing. Like, oh, we're not trying to do like just stark reality all the time for everything, right? And so
Yeah.
Gotham just didn't feel like New York. Instead, it felt like there was a much thicker grime, a much more unique personality to it than we had with the Nolan universe.
Yep.
I will say that, who boy, we need an editor who can trim off like 3 of the 5 different endings we got, because it was getting very long in the tooth towards the last like fourth of the film. And that I did get a little exacerbated with. Like it didn't feel like it did a full landing like it could have, considering how good everything else was in comparison.
Yeah.
So that would be really my only critique, is that the ending of the film just dragged on. Like I identified it had Lord of the Rings problems, where I identified like
It's interesting.
5 key spots where I was like, you could have ended it here and we all would have been good. And instead it just dragged on and on
Well,
and on.
all
Ending
the
after ending.
complaints we're hearing from it are about that last, third act.
Yeah.
So it sounds like it's a pretty solid movie,
The
though.
weird
I'm
thing
looking
I'd
forward to
say about
watching
the
it.
third act is that he's right. They and I even said this in my review, I believe. You could cut a good 10, 15, maybe even 20 minutes out of that movie and it would still
Totally.
be easily. But it not only drags, but it also kind of feels rushed. Like it feels like he needed like the best way for me to put it is it's a detective movie until it needs to be a superhero movie. And then that part is where it kind of falls off. Now,
Right.
it's not terrible. It's just not as good as the stuff before it.
So I'm going to put on my movie critic hat here, and I'm going to try to explain what really happened. In that, I feel like Reeves like had a very distinct and scoped vision, and then like when they did test filming, the studio came back and was like, "What the hell are you doing? Like we have to have like X, Y, and Z in this. It's a comic book
Right.
movie." And
Right.
so they went back and filmed an extra, 20 minutes and just shoved it in at the end to fill in or achieve certain, parameters that the studio wanted to make it a quote unquote comic book movie, right?
Right.
And so I think
Like
that
I'm not going to say what the line is, but there's a line that is foreshadowed that comes back to Batman later that kind of helps teach him a moral lesson. They could have easily done that 15 minutes earlier with a different character, a better character, I'm not going to say which, and it would have had more poignancy, and I think that was the original plan. And I think you're right. I think somebody up above Reeves said, listen, this is a superhero movie. We need superhero stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
I,
And they went back to that, and that's where we got it later. I honestly think that's the case.
I haven't seen the movie yet, so I don't really have an opinion. But I have heard various comments from people that are kind of alluding to what you're saying. They felt that it would have been better as just like a detective TV show.
It could be.
it didn't need to be a TV show. I think it was fine as a movie. I mean, it's basically the movie Seven, but with Batman in it, right?
Oh my god.
Oh yeah, like how this movie.
It's similar, yeah, very similar.
Yeah, how this movie got a PG-13 rating, I do not know.
Does
Like this is
Kevin Spacey touch anybody?
No.
not in this,
Pops in. Hey,
but I mean, again, not to get into spoilers, but there's like mutilation in this film, and it's a lot of like real like somebody asked online, like, can I take my kids to this? Absolutely fucking not. Like, in no way in hell can you take a kid to this film, like, whatsoever. There is no, like, you'd have to have your hand over the kid's eyes, like, throughout the entire film almost, right? Um, so yeah, it's a very dark film. And so from that perspective, again, like I said, I didn't think it could get more grim dark than the Nolan verse, and God, I was wrong. But it's
I
fun.
think you're right, though. I think the thing that was missing since Nolan was style in Gotham.
Yeah.
And I think that's what he did so well is the cinematography and the art style from just him, just the character Batman. He has a style to him that's kind of unique, right?
Yeah.
We haven't seen
Burton
one
did
that
a
looks
good
like
job
that.
with that.
Yeah, and I think that's something we were missing and didn't know it. We didn't know we were missing it.
A lot of him walking out from the shadows. And I'm going to give Pattinson a lot of credit. Somebody, I don't know if he came to this decision on his own or somebody had a conversation, but finally, like, we have a Batman who can keep his mouth shut and doesn't have duck face the entire time he's in the bat suit.
Yeah, Christian Bale.
And he doesn't talk a lot either. He doesn't have a lot to say.
Yeah, he doesn't say a lot. He's not doing a goofy voice. But like that was always the thing that annoyed me about Christian Bale is he always had his mouth open, like breathing out of his mouth the entire time in the bat suit, and he looks like he has duck face, and it just like deflates all the intimidation factor for me from him. And instead, Pattinson is very reserved. It's not so much that he's depressing, but he keeps himself like his comments short and like accurate and very
You mean like Batman?
Like Batman, right? Yeah. More like a Kevin Conroy type Batman. Not as iconic voice, but the tone is there, and that's what's important.
Yeah. Which is what Batman should be, right? Batman is the Dark Knight, the quiet sentinel or whatever they say in the Dark Knight. I think that's what Batman should be. When Batman talks too much, he weakens his character and he weakens his gravitas.
Yeah,
because
that's true.
He should be intimidating.
Usually has some other character talking on and on and on, and then Batman says no.
Yeah. That's why Robin's good. He can talk a lot.
Detective work we've ever seen him do.
That's cool.
And not detective work that relies purely on the magic of technology, though like technology's in it to a degree, but like true like thinking, like contemplative, and he gets some things wrong, and then and that's what I've always complained. I was like, I want the detective, right? And that's what we got. We got the detective in this, and that was fun, right? Again, it plays a lot more like Seven, or what was the one with Morgan Freeman and what's her name, The Bones or something? Bone
Collector. No,
Bone Collector. Yep. It kind of plays like some of those classic like late 90s, early 2000s, like detective movies and stuff like that.
That's cool.
And the gimmick is like, rather, because in the Bone Collector, like the character was like in a wheelchair or something like that, or like he was like
Washington is bedridden.
Yeah. So all of those like tend to have like a gimmick, but for this, it was a detective movie, and the gimmick was just like it's just Batman, right?
Yeah.
Until it gets kind of crazy towards the end. But again, that's like just the last 10 minutes. So I forgive it for that. Again, I think what we'll probably get at some point is a director's cut where Reeves comes out and says, oh, thank God you guys want a director's cut. I don't want to cut out like 20 minutes. Because for him, it would be easy, right? He did an intelligent thing. He shoved it all at the end to where he could easily just be like, all right, I'm just going to cut out like the last 20 minutes. And that is the movie. We'll all be like, yeah, that makes sense. I'm good with that.
Good.
Cool.
Good ending right there.
All right. Well,
build off.
Let's move on. Here's another interesting take.
The ginger side continues. DC race swaps another redhead. Nia Robinson cast as Carrie Kelly in the CW's Gotham Knights series. Yeah. Now this is weird.
It is.
Why do they keep with specifically redheads? They keep swapping them to like black people, like consistently, and I don't understand. It's weird. Why are they doing that? That's so weird.
It is consistent too. We've seen lists. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I put on my tinfoil hat and join you for a second, Thundero? Because this is actually another kind of point of contention. I'm okay with race swapping. I've got no problem with it. I have explained my stance on that. But I do agree with you that they tend to do it to the redheaded characters, and I think there's an inherent racism involved with that, not towards redheads per se, but like somebody who's married to a redhead. Historically, we have a lot of problems with redheads. They were often cast as like witches or immoral or something like that. We just didn't like. There's a lot of stuff like that, and I think there's a line of that goes in with like swapping out a redhead for a minority, like in some to some degree, along with those same
The
lines,
funny
right?
thing is yeah, okay, redheads are white, but they're a super minority.
They
Like
are
natural redheads are super rare in the
very
world,
rare. Yeah,
and so I honestly I think that you hit it the first time. You just didn't want to say it. It's racism. They
it
just
is
don't like
racism.
this I guess you'd call it a sub race, but that's a terrible word. But you know what I mean, of people for various reasons, and they just consistently swap them out, like Tris Marigold and The Witcher, and
Well, many.
this one here.
Yeah.
When they recast the Batwoman show, they they cast a black woman to replace what's her name, the lesbian chick. I can never remember her name. Uh, it's just weird. It's a weird thing that Hollywood keeps doing, and I don't think anybody can even like look at it and be like it's not something they're doing intentionally, because they definitely are. I don't know. I'm not saying there's like some big agenda, but there's something going on because it keeps happening to specifically redheads. They get swapped out for typically black people or just brown people in general,
Yes,
and that's
and
weird.
sub race is not the right word. Which you wanted is a minor hybridized
There you
race.
go.
Yeah,
Hybrid race is better.
hybridized. But yeah, it is weird, and it's mainly what I put it up here. It's just another redhead getting taken out. It's bizarre. But I also put it up here for because once again. We've had this conversation extensively. Background characters changing and stuff is not really an issue. That is
No.
Frank Miller's Robin, right? And he did something interesting anyway. He introduced a female Robin, right? That was different.
Yeah.
But another problem for me is not just the ginger side that's going on. Why do they keep casting no neck girls in movies?
I don't know. I don't.
Why do we get the
Hollywood does this.
scrunched humans all the time? Why are we getting so
If,
many of these no necks?
if you look through like just movie history, they have these weird phases where they intentionally, it's seemingly, I don't know if it's intentional or not because I'm not working in the boardrooms, but they go through these phases where they seemingly intentionally pick women who have, let's say, less than normal
Sure,
attractiveness, meaning
the
not your
horse face run
typical,
was bad. It was
yeah,
bad.
not your typical level of what people would consider attractive, right? They don't look
Right.
like models or whatever. Which is fine. I don't let those women, if they're good actresses, cool, whatever. But they have like it comes and goes in cycles. So another
Sure.
example of this was like the late '70s. There was a lot of women who were just not conventionally attractive at all
Yeah, that
being
was a
put in
thing.
movies.
Yeah. But no, we definitely went through the horse face phase. We've
Yep.
gone to the iron jaw phase, and now we're in the scrunched neck phase.
And I
Yeah.
think the '90s had kind of the girl next door, in early 2000s you had the girl next door phase for a lot of them. It's just these weird
It
cycles that
is weird.
Hollywood glommed onto with actresses. I don't know why. I'm sure there's some reason. Maybe it's just happenstance. I doubt that though because it's pretty consistent that they go through these. We came out of recently, I don't know, about 12 years ago, the really, really super ridiculously hot chicks who couldn't act phase,
Oh my
like
God,
Megan
that
Fox.
was a bad phase. Yeah.
So I don't
Uh,
know which is worse. Honestly, I would rather just have girl next doors who can act.
yeah.
Please, thank you.
Yeah.
I would
Uh,
rather watch people who can act.
Yeah, no, I don't really care about the race swap in this situation. Like I said, it's mainly main characters that I don't like it with. But it is become clear that the redheads are no longer allowed. And it is racist. It's a bizarre racism going on. I don't have anything against this girl. Maybe she's a good actress. She looks like a Disney kid to me.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's so Raven sequel, Raven's Home. Whatever. I just thought it was weird because once again, it's another no neck replace and a black girl, and it's weird because it's one thing to see all the redheads get thrown away from what Ben had said. But why is it always a black girl or guy, mainly a girl, who's replacing? Why do we have that particular race swap to the redhead? It's
strange.
weird. It
Very
is
strange. I would
because
like
it's
to
a
sit
thing.
down with executives from Hollywood and be like, "What's this about, guys?
Yeah,
Tell me the
what's the
truth.
deal?
What's up? What's up?"
Because it is very specific. I mean, there are some tropes in Hollywood. Clearly, we've seen recently. You can't have white people with white people. That's clear. It's not particularly men or women. It's just you can't have white people with white people in a relationship. They've always got to be dispersed with some other race. That's a thing. The redhead replacement by blacks. It's weird. And there is a thing, another side to this that we don't talk about because, well, we don't understand it. But I've heard many, many black people who are sick and tired of this shit. And they're like,
Yeah,
why do we get these hand-me-downs? Why do you keep throwing us these old characters that you've redone over and over and over again? Why can't we get new stuff? I,
because
ca-
they're lazy.
I can't say I disagree with them.
I think it really boils down to less to malevolence. I think there's some of that, but it's just easier.
Yeah, but the
It's just
redheads,
it's easier to do.
this I'm put this up specifically for the redhead thing. Something's going on with that dude. Something's going on with that because there
It
have
does
been
seem like
what
there's a
two
decree
dozen
that's come down.
replacements.
Oh, at least I'd say
Gingers
probably
are
more than that.
evil.
Yeah. Well, they do not have souls. That's true. But no, I'm kidding. That's South Park. But yeah, there does seem to have been a decree almost that's come down from
Yeah,
whoever's the mastermind in Hollywood or whoever masterminds these movements in Hollywood that the redheads got to go. We
it's
got to get rid
bizarre.
of them.
Um,
They got to go.
It is, but going on what Ben said, from the historical point of view, I never understood that either, though, Ben. Why have redheads always been so hated? Because they have been. They have been. I mean, people
I don't
talk
know.
about racism these days. It's all about blacks, but there's always when you get a new group come into the America, there's always racism. The Chinese certainly felt it. The Koreans, Vietnamese, the Irish most certainly felt it. The Italians when they came, and the Germans, the Polish, even the Russian migration we had. There's always that. It's just kind of the tribalism of anything. But why were redheads always seen to be something less than human? What's behind that? I wonder.
So it again, there's a lot of like history that goes involved with this, right?
Sure.
Their association with like historical vampires. There was, association with Judas to be a redhead. The succubuses, being redheads, daughters of Lilith and stuff from, biblical mythology. Whether they were or not is kind of irrelevant. It's just what they were painted as through a portion of history, and so it just kind of worked. Like we talk about the cultural zeitgeist, right? So this worked through the cultural zeitgeist, and so from that, redheads were then like looked as like temptresses, and they were they were like defiled and stuff like that, and we're going to like be the fall of man and stuff, right? And so this is all this like stuff that's been around for like 1,000 years or something like that.
Kind
That's
of
just
like
like
when the Japanese would have a twin, they'd kill one because they thought it was evil.
something
Things
like
like
that,
that.
Heathen.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, these are feelings that have been around, and rumors and culture and stories that prevail to today, right? And so I think that is a portion of has to do with why they feel that it's okay to race swap them, um, because I think it's racism on both sides, right? So if you want to say it's racist because redheads because they're doing that, but then they feel like okay, so like the black actress is can only be can only be put into the role of something that we feel is a redhead,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
So
And that.
like
Yeah.
it's the worst of both worlds. It's doing a racism to her and a racism to the other character.
Yeah.
Like both are getting the short end of the stick, right?
That's right. And
Yeah.
that's the complaint coming out of the black community, and I get it.
I
There's
do too.
another factor. I'm kind of curious if there might be there might be some influence here. I don't know. Let me throw it out there and see what you guys think. There are some pretty famous redheads in history, and not the ones you
Oh
think
yeah.
of, like with the Vikings and stuff, or Elia Muramitz or stuff like that. But there's some other ones that are quite, real human beings who were redheaded, and I'm wondering if there's an effect. Genghis Khan was redhead. Attila the Hun was a redhead, and Mohammed, the Allah one, the Islamic one, was a redhead.
Oh,
Well,
wow.
I'm just saying, these are all redheads that I'm sure the West didn't appreciate very much, right?
Because there's this misconception, right, that red hair is a fully Eurocentric thing, right? It
Well,
comes from the
those are all
Isles.
white men I just named. I
Yeah,
understand the misconception,
but
but
being even like you're saying, whiteness, as they call it, being a white person, a person with white skin, as we would call it, isn't a Eurocentric thing. It just has been that
yeah,
way for a while. But we quote unquote white people used to be everywhere. That's just the truth.
yeah,
Like I know people don't like
that
hearing it.
wanderlust gene is pretty strong in us. That's
Yeah,
true. But I just wondering it because the European, this is clearly a European thing, with the redheads. Historically, we're talking here, and I just wondering because those three individuals were rather hated in the Europe for good reasons. To be honest with you,
yes.
so I'm just wondering if that their redheadedness played into that at all. Do you guys think that's possible, or am I reaching?
Uh, I don't know. It's tough. It's tough to say, to be honest. It's
Hmm,
weird where biases like those come from,
it
right?
is.
Because
Yeah,
there's biases in other racial groups like that too,
sure,
towards subgroups of them.
sure.
It's a very strange thing. Humanity is a very tribal animal,
Yeah, yeah,
and if you look different, we often come up with reasons to make you
yeah.
different, even if you're really
Now
just a
the
person at the end
tribalism,
of the
yeah,
day.
that's true.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think a lot of people do misunderstand that as far as origin's sake. Now the so-called Aryan people, we are originally from North America. That's where, at least as far as anthropology has come so far. But after the cataclysmic events of the Younger Dryas, we did basically reformed ourselves in the along the Black Sea in Anatolia, and we spread out from there. So actually, the whole modern idea of blonde hair, blue eyes, and red hair and all that stuff, it's actually an Anatolian story. It's not a European one. Turkey. Sorry, did I not
It's
mention
strange
that?
because if there's a lot, like you're saying, like you're talking about, and this is kind of off topic, but whatever, of evidence to suggest that what we consider your basic white man
Hmm.
is, like you said, probably much more Turkish insofar as from Anatolia.
Oh, absolutely.
They're not
Yeah.
Turkish. They're not Turkish necessarily in ethnicity, but
Well,
from
not
that
these
region.
days, but I
Yeah.
mean, but they were the ones in the area originally, the steppes, right? But
Yes.
yeah, no, I mean, because Europe was a later migration.
Right. Europe was multiple times, in fact, invaded and
Sure,
effectively genocided
that's
by
true.
whoever invaded them.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a repeating cycle throughout history over
It
tens
was.
of thousands of
Uh,
years.
and it is a strange thing because Ben's not wrong. Redheads have always been perceived negatively. And I can't get into the psyche of it. You know what I mean? And I'm
Because
not a
they've always
redhead.
been rare.
Maybe
Could
they're
be.
just odd and weird. Maybe I
Could
don't know.
be. It could be just that too. It could be that simple. They're
Yeah.
the oddity of them, like the rarity of them, makes people envious. Makes
So,
people
uh,
not trust them
ma-
because they're so different
so
comparatively.
Ben, make sure you tell your wife that all these people said that redheads are odd.
I'm gonna change that a little bit to say redheads are off.
Okay, you
Well,
did
Yeah.
I
that.
said
That's probably better.
rare.
That's it. That's better. That's better. That's true. That's true.
I
All
mean
right.
odd in the definition of just non unusual. I don't mean odd as in bad.
Well,
Chester, don't
it
twist
is
my words.
it is a strange phenomena. It is. It's very bizarre, and of course that's a separate issue from the clear whatever odd politic Hollywood's onto now. We're replacing gingers with black girls, and
Yep.
like I said, it is racism on both sides, and the aside the scrunch neck thing, I'm not for it. I'm not for it. Anyway.
Umbrella Academy reveals season 3 release date and teaser. I never watched the second season of that. I should.
You should, because there's a lot of crap that comes out. There's a lot of crap. We can all agree. Lots of crap. CW is mainly crap. But the Umbrella Academy came out, and Doom Patrol, that was another one. It was fun. It's fun. I like the Umbrella Academy. I thought it was good. And I didn't think, my wife and I both were thinking the other day, hey, where's the Umbrella Academy? And we were like, maybe it's done. But it's not, dude. We're getting more Umbrella Academy. And I'm happy about it.
It's
Any
good. I
opinions?
like I really like the first season.
I
I don't know
loved it
why I never
altogether.
watched the other one.
It was fun.
I probably
Uh,
will. I'll make a point to.
I've liked both seasons. I thought they were really good. I'm curious. Ellen Page or whatever her name is now will in the third season.
Yeah, and I'm kind of curious what they're going to do with her. She is an odd duck, and she's not necessarily a bad actress. I think she's fine. And but she's changed herself so much, and her forehead has grown about 3 feet. I'm not sure exactly what they can do with her right now.
Conehead.
She is, dude. I mean, and I'm not talking about her personal choices, and I don't care about that. I'm just saying, aesthetically, and Hollywood, being an actor, it's all about your look, right? That's a big part of their job. So I don't know. But I don't know what they're going to do with Ellen Page, or whatever she's changed her name to. But nevertheless, I liked her character in it. I liked it overall. Um, any
God, she
other?
does have a big forehead.
She does.
Look at that.
It's growing exponentially. But I hope it's good. First season I like. Second season was fine. I hope it continues. It's a cool show. Yeah.
Who's your favorite character?
My favorite character is Gorilla Man.
Really?
Yeah. I like his. He actually has a story arc, dude.
Lester just likes the representation.
I do.
Finally, a gorilla man
I do.
for him to.
And of course, the chimpanzee boss. He's pretty cool. But I liked it overall. I thought it was a good ensemble. It's a fun little thing, and they had an actual story and plot. It was neat. I don't want to spend much time on it. I just was like, yay! That's it.
June, right? That's when it's coming out. Is June?
Yeah, it sounds like it. Ben, any opinion? Yeah, on my birthday even. Aw.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what they do with Elliot Page as well. Whether or not his change will transition into the storyline as well could be interesting.
Well, they have to, right? I mean, she went and cut her tits off, didn't she?
Yes.
I don't think she really ever had many tits, though. They were always small in the first place. Did she have them removed?
She did have a vasectomy. I believe. I remember hearing that.
Yeah, she had. He had top surgery. So, yeah, I mean, and what I like about Umbrella Academy is it's not trying to tell the typical story. It's telling something different, and it has different types of characters, and they're flawed characters, but they're interesting characters, and and I too my favorite is Gorilla Man, purely because I'm a silverback myself, and so having finally some hairy man representation is something that I've been longing for.
I love number 5.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Klaus. I like Klaus a lot too.
I like Klaus too. Yeah,
it's fun, man.
I like him. Fun.
But I would say with Ellen to end on that. When are they going to get the boy transgenders a dick? Huh?
From what? Okay.
Yeah, they don't really have that. They can't make those artificially.
Yeah, they can.
They can. Are they made of plastic and metal titanium pins?
It's a whole complicated thing.
Inflatable, right? Isn't it like a
cyborg dicks? Wait a minute.
Hold on a second. But anyway, that's just aside. I don't know what they're going to do with the character, but she is an important part of the story, so they got to do something with her. But anyway, it's fun.
Someone said it would probably fit in the story anyway because it's all weird anyway. It's a very strange story anyway, so it wouldn't be surprising if she transitioned during the story.
It doesn't really matter. Yeah, it doesn't. It wouldn't affect anything. So cool. Rock on. Season 3 on my birthday. Ha ha. All right, here we go.
Landmark Marvel DC crossover JLA Avengers gets limited reprint in honor of George Perez,
which is cool.
Oh,
we all love George.
Cool.
For sure. Of course, he's really, really famous for his Teen Titan stuff with Marv Wolfman. This is a cool thing, but this is not why this is up here. This is a Ben request, and Ben, take it away.
Yeah, so this is a trend that we've been seeing for reprints, and I'm a big fan of reprints. There's a lot of series that benefit from a print run that people maybe missed and they want a hard copy of. I know that I have a bunch of like reprint copies in my own of runs of like Punisher or various other things. Found kind of weird is like they did a limited print run, and I knew a lot of people online who were very upset about this because 7,000 copies in today's day and age, for the type of people who'd be really thirsty for this type of stuff, that really, really crazy small, right?
It is.
And for something as iconic as this crossover was, and yeah, I don't understand why they're doing such a limited run copy of it, considering the number of people who genuinely wanted to have a copy.
Yeah.
So I don't understand the purpose, right? There's a lot of people out there who'd love to have it. They're going to make good money off of it, right? And so, and we're seeing this, and it feels like an artificial way to generate like later value out of it. But I don't understand it because it's clearly a reprint,
It's a
right? So it's
reprint.
not
Yeah. It is
right.
odd. And
It's not the value of the original run.
that's right, and therefore it is odd, especially these days with DC and Marvel. They get a lot more movement in their trades, omnibuses,
Oh yeah,
reprint market than they do their new stuff. So
totally.
yeah, which is a sad statement, but it's the truth.
And
So
this reprint run is a smaller copy distribution than the original run. So I don't understand the purpose here, and it's just creating a lot of like, frankly, kind of pissed off like comic book fans, right?
yep.
Like, what are we doing? Why is it such a
Well,
limited run?
the DC and Marvel have made a mastery of pissing off their fans recently, dude.
Well,
It is
historically,
strange.
not recently.
It
Yeah.
is a strange thing, and it seems it's like it reeks of like the comics crash in the '90s kind of behavior. Just stupid decisions
Yeah,
that
that's
end
true.
up biting you in the butt.
And it
Like,
feels
why
more
not
like a
wide print
Disney
this?
move. Yeah.
Yeah, why not wide print this? Why not? What's the reason? Why not double what it originally ran at so more people can get their hands on it?
Right.
It's just weird. It doesn't make sense. You would think you would want to, if you're going to celebrate George, okay, celebrate him. Get his work into more people's hands.
Yeah.
Doesn't that make the
Yeah.
most sense?
It
Like, that's
does.
just, I don't know. It's
Well,
strange decision making over there at the big
it
two.
is, but at least they are doing an honor for him. Whereas, if you guys remember, not when of course when Stan Lee died, there was some stuff, but but when the Kirby anniversary came around, Jack Kirby, DC did some stuff. Marvel did like nothing, dude. So I don't know. I understand respecting George Perez. You should respect George Perez. He's an important character in the history of comic books. But they are picky in what they do want to put their money behind. And maybe that's the ultimate thing. I think there is a little bit of economics, foolish economics, but maybe they just don't think it's going to sell much. I don't know. It's bizarre, dude.
That's why you got to
Well,
kickstart these things.
it's
They
definitely not
should
going
do
to sell
that,
much
dude.
now with only 7,000 copies.
No,
Like,
they
they're kicking themselves here. They're tripping over their own feet before they ever get out of the gate.
yeah,
If they're worried it's not going to sell much, then they should cast a wider net and let
and
more people get a chance at it.
that's true, but I like what Ben just said. Why aren't the big companies taking advantage of things like Kickstarter, especially what we're seeing going on
Oh God,
with it?
Sanderson! Holy
That's
crap!
an amazing success, but we've seen other successes as well. We've seen a bunch of people come over from the big comic books and land some pretty big money on the crowdfunders.
Well,
Why not get
especially
in on it?
with the
Hasbro's
budgets,
doing that actually.
Yeah,
yeah, with the
I,
budgets that they can command to market these things and the way they could send word out about them, they could just probably rake in some stuff depending
yeah,
on what they did. Like, imagine if they kickstarted a reprint of like a special cover for the death of Superman.
or something like
That
that.
would make millions of dollars.
It might well.
Millions of dollars.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
yet, nothing.
yeah.
We don't get it.
Don't get it. It is odd, but I don't know. It's not the only odd
Sorry,
thing we're
Ben was
seeing.
going to say something. I cut him off.
Ben,
what was that?
did you have anything else to add before I move to our last story?
Oh no, I guess like from the Kickstarter perspective, I know that there's like negative knee-jerk reaction to big companies being involved with it because typically they feel like oh, it's for small creators, and of course it is, right? There's nothing wrong with that, but I think for stuff like that, when there isn't like, there's obviously a level of confidence problem in what they feel like they're printing. It's a good way for them to dip their toes and say like, okay, well, we want, say for like this run, 200,000 for a limited run, and anything extra will just print more, right? And then all of a sudden they could make like 5 million and end up printing 50,000 or something like that, right, or whatever. But the point being is that I feel like there are executives or people running the business who don't understand like how to operate in the current market, and they're still using old print logic, old analytics and stuff like, well, we can't print too much because we don't know if we're going to sell it. Well, there's other models and other ways to try and predict that now.
Monetize
It's the old Bucho problem, right?
Yeah.
No, definitely. And Bob does not like Ellen Page's version of Vanya. I don't have a comparison, so I don't know. And Roger says, Chester, aren't you going to talk about the boys trailer? No, I'm not.
What? Why not?
No, Eric. Bad Eric. All right.
Did you not like it?
Dude, first season I was like, the second season was like, fuck you. Yeah, okay.
Looks so good.
I mean, no, it's not. It sucks. I mean, you have to do is follow Garth in his blueprint. What are you doing? What are you doing? Anyway, I'm not talking about it. Bad Roger too.
Bastard.
Go
Bastard.
Amazon's overhaul of Comixology ignites concerns from comic creators and readers.
Now, I haven't read this. I don't know. I've been seeing little things pop up about this past couple of weeks. I know there's something to it. I just don't know what it is. Ben, please illuminate us.
Yeah, so basically, I'm a huge Comixology fan, right? And the reality is, like, DC's tried to do their own thing, Marvel's tried to do their own thing. None of them have really worked out that well. And so Comixology is like the big name of the game, right? So most of the big stuff, like this is what people do. There's a subscription model you can do. You can get comics. You can download comics. And one of the things that's really nice is like there's there's a specific like comic reader in the app, so it can go panel by panel to make it easier to read on phones and stuff, right?
And it is good. It is good.
Yeah, but they're doing some big fundamental changes, and it feels like what they're trying to do is, because Amazon bought out Comixology back in like 2014, and they've let them kind of do their own thing for the most part. But I think Amazon's like getting tired of like having this like niche business, and they're wanting to like fold it into the larger like Kindle like stuff in some form or fashion. So they're getting rid of a lot of the stuff that was like really beneficial, right? So no subscriptions outside the US, no DRM-free downloads, right? Meaning that, you have to have the internet connection. It's going to make it difficult to read without an internet connection for certain things, right? There's a lot wrong with this. And, there's concern about future, like, support of the app itself. And the question becomes, like, didn't have to, like, they're not needing to do like a complete revamp of Comixology. It's been working pretty good on like the codes that it has right now. And it's one of those things like, I remember back in the day, like you and I used to talk about like how to solve like the pirating of music and the pirating of like of movies and stuff. And I always said, like, back in the day, didn't I tell you that streaming, like having like reliable online sources for doing that stuff where you could pay some money and that is what killed a lot of the pirating stuff, right? Sure. As soon as we had iTunes and a lot of like online sources for music and then the same for movies, like pirating just kind of like disappeared. Like, sure, it's still there to a certain degree, but usually in countries that just don't have access to this stuff, right? There's not nearly as much pirating like in the United States as there used to be 20 years ago, right?
That's true. So, and the VPN also played a big part in that.
And the VPN played a big part in that, right? So, but it's stuff like this that I don't think they're going to hurt the comic book industry, help the comic book industry. I think they're just going to hurt it more. And it's another one where I'm like, nobody's explained why they're making these changes, and I don't get it, right? Because everything has been working like status quo really well. People have been making money. Indie guys have been making decent money, like being able to put stuff on there. I know a lot of people who do it, and they have some decent comic book runs and stuff like that. So I don't understand what the purpose is for this. What are we trying to accomplish other than have Amazon just really kind of nefariously absorb Comixology in a way that is not beneficial to the readers.
Well, it comes into the fat bloated bureaucracy problem again, probably. But
Yeah.
it's true. We have a lot of indie people here that have used Comixology. But
Hmm.
the
Yep.
DRM thing is weird. No subscriptions outside the U.S. Why? Amazon's everywhere. What's the problem?
And that's the
Uh,
one that you and why I wanted to bring it up here, right? Because like that affects you. I know you do a lot of reading and you could
yep,
have subscriptions outside the US, right? There's a lot of people, I was the same way like when I lived in Japan, right? That, the stuff like this made it easier to stay connected to, US based culture and stuff like that, which, as you know, Chet, can be difficult when you're remote like that,
it
right?
is.
And
Yeah.
so it's an asinine decision. I do not understand what we're trying to accomplish with this.
Yeah, it is. I think it's bureaucratic garbage, dude.
I think there might be something. There might be another layer to it. I honestly, I've said this on here. I think Amazon is eventually going to make, and they have made inroads into it. They just never jumped on it fully. They're going to make a play into more of the like Kickstarter, like we were talking about Kickstarter stuff, like crowdfunding. They there was a rumor a long time ago they were going to buy Kickstarter. I think it was.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I don't that never materialized, but I do think that there's a reason that rumor exists. I think at Amazon they see that there's a big pie out there that they haven't really tapped into, and they would be perfect for. I've advocated for Amazon becoming and they already kind of are, but even more so, a much more what's the word I'm looking for? Much more front and center, I guess would be the best way to say it. Distributor for comic books. I think you could do a
sure.
lot with Amazon's
I
network.
I just think they're too bloated, dude. I mean, there's so
They're
many
very
things
bloated.
you got to think about it. Like for instance, with DC Comics, right now you got two people who are on the front end of buying DC comic books, right? You got the
Hmm.
Diamond Publishing guy, and you have the guy who created Walking Dead, right? Comic book.
Hmm.
And why is the Amazon not in on that? You would think they
They
would
should
be
be.
all over it, right? But they're not. But you have other things, like for instance, this is probably a problem most people don't know about, but Europe is the you could use Ben would probably say cutting edge of ecological thinking, right? Green thinking.
Hmm.
And one of the problems they have is companies like Amazon. It's much easier for them when they get thousands to millions of returns to just simply destroy and throw it away than actually try to fix it or move it somewhere else. It's
Yep.
cheaper because they're dealing with such quantity. So it creates a lot of extra garbage instead of taking and trying to use that to move it to third world countries or stuff like that. There's actually in certain countries, like say Germany, it's illegal for Amazon to do that now. They can't take stuff and just destroy things on that. Well, not just them, all companies. They can't just destroy things en masse. Now, if you're sitting here and you're thinking, why would a company destroy millions and millions and millions of dollars of product? Well, because it's cheaper than them trying to do something else with it. But
Then
this is
fixing it.
how bloated Amazon is. They're so
Hmm.
bloated that it's cheaper for them to throw millions of dollars away than it is for them to spend to do something else with it.
I would guess, if I had to guess, there's a reason that they're doing this, and it's going to come back in some form of integration with the Comixology app into like Kindles and things. Uh, and eventually, they'll sort that out.
Mhm.
But that's what my guess is that they're kind of piecemealing this down and just basically shutting it down, from what I understand, to eventually reintegrate it as their own beast into their reader.
Maybe. Yeah,
Um,
it is bizarre though. And you're right,
because it's
Alan.
weird to just slowly pick it apart and just let it kind of rot away on the vine and then just shut it off. That's a strange thing to do. It doesn't seem like there's a profit motive there, to
It
be
is
honest.
weird. And Alan does mention the fact that Amazon has promoting Substack comics as
Yep.
original content, and maybe that's their play. I don't know. But it is odd because Comixology has been around a while. It's been refined, as Ben has said, quite well over the years.
Yeah.
If you've never used the Comixology reader, it works really well. It really
Yeah.
does. It's very smooth. And
It's
I
a shame.
remember long time ago when those readers were first coming out and all the troubles that we're having with it. What a waste to throw something as useful away from that. Now, I'm curious, Ben, do you think there's anything here where they believe that people don't like digital? they're seeing numbers that we're not seeing? Because that's one of the problems with digital. We don't get to see the numbers. They think people are moving away from that and they want more print in hand, and digital is a failure. Do you think there might be some of that going on?
No, I know too many people who are decently successful for that to really be a problem, right?
Yeah.
Um, from the digital sales and stuff like that. So I don't think it can be that. I think what they're trying to do is consolidate products or services because there's probably so again speaking as somebody who understands like and has been in the upper echelons of large business and understanding how there are people higher up the food chain who have like these conversations that do not translate well to the actual like people consuming the services and
Mm.
people like, working in the front lines. My bet is there was somebody at a higher level executive position who's sitting there is like reading like two different line items and he's like, huh, like we have Kindle and we have Comixology. Aren't comic books just books? Like, why do we have two separate services for what's effectively the same thing? And I think this is a step in consolidating everything into the Kindle platform, right? Would be
The pencil
my bet,
pushers strike again.
right? Where Kindle is fine for like e-readers because e-reading is a completely separate thing than
Sure.
reading a comic book, right? And Comixology was great for reading a comic book. And so that's my concern is that somebody higher up the food chain who doesn't really understand the market that they're affecting has made a bad executive decision because again they don't understand the market.
I see. Yeah, that's probably true. Alan mentions that Amazon does starting to put comic books on Kindle right now. So
Right.
yeah, that's probably what they're doing. They're dropping it all on the Kindle, and they don't understand. Maybe the Kindle people will get a clue and take the software and move it over.
And
I
that
think
would
that's
be
what'll end up happening. To be honest with you, they'll just
they'll
integrate
have
it.
to they'll have robust support of the software as it is to make Kindle better for doing comic book reading, but also support the robust infrastructure that is the comic books, right?
Yeah,
And so
Mhm.
because it's a completely different beast than books in themselves, right? And
very.
so, I mean, I'm not saying that it can't be done, but it has to be done with purpose and elegance, and that's where I get a little bit concerned, especially
Yeah,
in the software market, knowing my behind the scenes knowledge of how these things tend to go, and when you got a service that's just kind of working great and
yeah,
only needs
smooth.
like yeah, only needs like fine tuning maintenance from time to time. You don't need to like completely reinvent the wheel with it. I get nervous when someone decides they want to reinvent the wheel because it's a real easy way to make everything go completely to hell.
Yeah, it happens way too often, to be honest with you.
Oh,
But
totally.
yeah, but that sucks, dude. That does suck. But you're probably right. It's just some pencil pusher up top not understanding a thing. And this is the problem with bloated bureaucracies. They're it's the problem, we see it across the world, and it just constantly creates angst and red tape and nonsense for the rest of us. But I don't know. Oh, well, anything on this, Eric?
I had a little trouble when they first did it. I couldn't even open the app, but then once I closed it and installed it, then researched for it. But I've known people lost their entire libraries and stuff after all this happened. So I don't. I didn't use it a lot. I use it just very little.
Wow, that sucks. People losing libraries, though. See,
Yeah.
yeah, because Comixology's been around a long time, dude.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Not being able to take care of your
It is
customers.
kind of funny though, the irony of Amazon. It started as a bookstore,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah,
It's screwing up something with comic books. That's the irony of that is pretty funny. Yes,
yeah.
it's absurd. It's an absurdity in the real world.
Well, they are far from when they started. And I
They
remember
are.
when Amazon started because when, back at that time I was living in Hawaii, and I actually used the very early Amazon to get my books because I was in Hawaii and the local RPG stores, hobby shops, just didn't carry much because of the cost, right? They had to be very cautious of what they all do. But because of the transportation issue across the ocean, it creates extra trouble for them that other shops wouldn't have. So I would often use Amazon to bring in stuff that I couldn't get otherwise. So I've been using Amazon since day one, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
That's one of
never
the reasons
imagined it
why
would
I
become
think it's
this.
It's one of the reasons why I think it's a good marriage if they can pull it off, and especially if they can do physical distribution with their the Amazon network, whatever you want to call it. That
Drones.
could be quite a cost saver to the consumer in the end. If you can get like set up subscriptions and just get X amount of books delivered to your house, that would probably save a lot of money in the end. It would cut out, unfortunately, the middleman, which would be the comic shops and the retailers. But I think they've been getting cut out for a while now. So I think that's just the way the market's going, and not just in comic books. I think it's kind of going that way in just about everything.
Yeah, but
Um,
they've done other things though, somewhat recently, that are also troubling. Like for instance, they're always pushing you to be on their Prime, which costs money, right?
yeah.
And if you don't, well, not only are you paying more for the book, but something that affects me, they bump up the shipping cost too.
Oh yeah,
Right? So it's like
yeah.
they're forcing you to pay money to be on their Prime. Works out for me because my kids and wife use Prime, so for the video. So well, my whatever, it's fine. But they've been they're kind of penny pinching and doing. They're becoming more and more Disney every day in that regard.
Well, you don't get as big as Amazon without being just the worst type of capitalist. It
That's
just
true.
doesn't happen.
Yeah. But nevertheless, this is sad, dude, because that has been absolutely refined over the years, and they just kind of threw it out. Oh well.
Oh
Yeah, they
well.
even drove one of Thundero's favorite people to bitch about it online.
Uh-oh. Which
Who?
one? I got a lot.
Patton Oswald.
Oh God.
Oh, Patton.
Patton
Patton.
Oswalt.
Yeah.
Oh. They should. You know what? If he wasn't so insufferable as a human, they should have had him play a comic accurate penguin. Right there. There you go. Patton Oswalt.
Yeah, no, Patton's a weird one. There's some things I like about him, and there's some things I really don't like about him. But anyway, so you got anything to say, Eric? I know you got a book coming out here real soon.
Yeah, April 8th, we're launching on Kickstarter. I'll go ahead and drop the link for the sign-up page on the chat there. I've already got 72 people who have signed up for the campaign, so I'm
Nice.
looking forward to getting it launched and getting it shipped out.
Number
Very
four.
nice.
Number four.
Number 4.
How's Shabby and Pickles piece coming along?
Vestry is in my office right now, issue 4.
Nice. Yeah.
Showed up this week. The ash cans have showed up. The
You know
prints,
what's
everything
next?
showed up.
Yes,
Obsidian is next. Yes, I can't
Booster
wait for that one. A
Kiwi's
booster.
first book is coming.
Yeah, and he's been promoting it. They've been posting
Yep.
pages and artwork from it.
And I'm gonna be honest with you, I
told him to
read
make
it.
sure he goes out there and do that. Yeah.
I read it. He's good. Booster
Really?
can write. Like I know he thinks he's a dumbass, but he's not. He actually is a good writer. It's good.
Who is the person that's been pushing him for years to write? Who is that?
You.
Who? Yeah.
You.
Thank you.
It's genuinely good. When they're ready to put it out there, I'm going to promote it for them as much as I can. It's good.
Yeah, no, we'll do it here too. Absolutely. Oh, cool. Ben, do you want to sell something to people?
Only my love and affection.
Love and affection. Cherry flavored condoms? No. Okay.
Cherry
Ben
flavor.
Nelson song?
That sounds terrible.
It does sound terrible because it's all going to be chemically and rubbery.
Oh,
It's this
chemical cherry is not a good flavor. No.
See, it's not always good being a girl. It's not always good. Yeah. Anyway. All right then. Well, thank you guys very much. It was fun. We went pretty long today, but that's all right. We had some good conversations, some hot conversations, but also some goofy ones. And that's the point. Keep in mind tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we will hopefully be continuing with the ICRPG run in our Cyberpunk game. Our DM had an emergency last week, so it didn't happen. But hopefully we'll have tomorrow. Maybe, and if it doesn't, maybe I'll just do like a one-off like I do sometimes. But come back for that. Also this week on Drone Record Ultimate Edition on the Thursday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we are doing Artful Thinking's furry.
Oh, the furry book. Yeah.
We're doing furry book.
Furries.
Yeah,
Sexy
furries.
furries.
Yeah, cute little furries. So if you're into the furries, or you are what do they call those, bronies? Yeah, if that's who you are, come on in on Thursday, and we'll have some fun. But other than that, thank you all very much, and Thundero, take us out of here.
Do this one. I think this might be my favorite one, Chester, that I came up with. I like it.
Okay.
I would rather live poor and surrounded by the bounty and beauty of nature than die rich surrounded by the bounty and ugly of man. Beauty is the measure of the universe's wonder and the measure of our love. You know it when you see it because you know it without seeing it.
Ooh, namaste. Later, everybody.